Good morning, everyone. On the day 4 of our FTP program, Upskilling Industry Skill for Media Educators 5.0. And I welcome you all on behalf of MIT School of Communication, as well as on MIT Academic Staff College. So we will continue our session with Dr. Rubaiyat Ashfaq, who is Associate Professor in MIT School of Communication. And yesterday he was already taken one session from 2 p.m. to 2:45 p.m. 45 minutes. He has set the stage on data processing and presentations, and he will continue his session today. So, Rubaiyat sir, I welcome you here once again, and over to you for your part 2 on data journalism.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Am I audible, ma'am?
Properly audible, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So we are going to continue from where we left. So today we are going to discuss that how we are going to use data and how we are going to visualize it. Because nowadays we are having data, but it is very difficult to visualize it. And when we are visualizing it, might be we are not being able to visualize in a very appropriate manner. So today we will have a hands-on experience that how we are going to use visualization techniques used in data journalism. The first foremost is that we need to follow it is we need to understand what is data and what is information. Information is around us. We are having so much of information, but we need to process raw information into a data. Just give me a minute. Let me. Yeah, here. The data often refers to the raw data, which is unprocessed information, and information usually refers to a processed data, or you can say that the data which is presented is some part of the context. So we need to underline what we are going to take for our research and what we are going to left for the for the future studies or for the further researches. So what is most appropriate we are going to take, and how we are going to take. So we need to follow the variables. Here we need to follow the variables, like we are having categorical, like we are having qualitative, and we are having quantitative. So in qualitative, we are going to follow the binary, like which are like if we are going to mention some sort of death. So it is like you are going to mention yes or no. Then we are having nominal, means the marital status, and others. And ordinal, what are the stages of disease? For example, what in this stage? Ordinal, like what in the class you can mention, like what is the income group you can mention. It is in the ordinal. And in the quantitative, we are having discrete, that is the numbers. For example, you are having forecast. That is a discrete, that is a number. So here you can say the number of the children, and continuous, like it is like when you are going to use the quantitative, it is a continuous one. That is the age, that is the weight, it is like continue in the process. So here we have curated one example for you. So here you can find a table, and in this table you can check. We are having sex, we are having social issues, children's age and income. And we are having in the vertical you can check, and horizontal we have male. It is like the social class middle. We like how many children they have, like what is the age and what is the income group. So this is this is a whole we have done, and then we got this data. But this data we are not going to represent it. This data we are not going to visualize it. So first we need to refine this data, and we need to get more information. And how we are going to get more information? We are going to get more information with the data elements and the indicators. Like the data elements are like it is like if it is a direct one, then it is a single basic unit of data. And the indicators, how we are going to calculate the indicators? Indicated places the raw data in the context. So indicator we are going to calculate with the numerator, and denominator we are going to multiply by 100. It is like the percentage. To make more data meaningful, we are going to use the indicators, and indicators are the essential part of the data visualization and the data representation. So here you can check Indicators is equal to numerator and then denominator, and we are going to multiply whatsoever we are going to get the results, it is in the percentage. So we are having the ratio, we are having proportionate, we are having percentage, we are having weight. So this is the indicators we are going to follow. And now why data is important? Now every day more and more data is becoming available to us. According to the Global Market Intelligence Company, IDC, they had done an intensive research in 2018, and they have also done in 2018. So what they have found around 18 zettabyte of total data which we have actually created, and it is growing to very fast space. Like in 2025 we are going to get around 175 zettabytes. And if you are going to store 1 zettabyte on DVDs, on the like CDs, then I think we are going to like Earth is we are going to Earth utilize more around 200 plus times. So this is the space of the data. But nowadays we are having chipset, we are having cloud storage. So on the cloud storage we can store the data, but we are having so much of information. And like where we are actually following this data, like all the information is there, but we are going to use very important information. We are going to extract only the important things. We are going to follow, we are going to use, we are going to assess the patterns. We are going to assess the trends. Now, yesterday, day before yesterday, I think you have seen like Karnataka Assembly elections, we have seen the trends. No, we have the data, and with the help of the trends, and when we are going to get a counting of the seats or the votes, then you can also check the trends, like who is leading and like what are the trends for the previous 5 years and like the previous five elections. You can, and you can also monitor, and we can also predict. No, nowadays everybody is following IPL. In IPL, we are having predictions. In the starting of the match, they said Mumbai Indians is going like having 51% chances, and Kolkata Knight Riders, they are having 49% chances. So these predictions are based on the data, and they have analyzed those data like and depend upon the indicators. Always keep in mind that the data, whatsoever we are analyzing, we are monitoring, and we are predicting, it is based on the previous data, previous trends. And when we are analyzing it, we can check. The biggest example of like how we are going to use the data and when you are going to use the data, like in the between of the pandemic crisis. So, people are starting to look for the data, make sense of the world around them. It is like we are following news channels, we are following the government data, like how these are the number of cases are actually rising in a particular state, particular region, particular city, particular mohalla. It is we have seen a trend, and we are also like talking about we need to flatten the curve. So flatten the curve means it is we are having the data. On the basis of the data, we are predicting, we are assessing that in future we are going to have like more worse situation. And to combat those worse situations, the government, they have decided, they have created the plan. So on the basis of the data, whatsoever we are getting, we have created, we have curated further plans. All the data which are being we are collecting in the census, with the help of those data we are creating our 5-year plans. On the basis of the data which we are generating, we are assessing, we are creating policies. So the data is important one. And then next one is how we are going to verify the data. It is very important nowadays because we are having so much of information around us, but how we are going to use it. The first and foremost, in the data verification, we need to check the data, whether the data is fit to use. It is, we are, when if we are going to use the data, then it is being like it is, we are able to generalize it, and the data reflects clear values or the true performance. Then you can also check whether whatsoever data you have, it is like against the criteria, whether you are able to, like your data is able to qualify or meeting those qualities. And we also need to add the dimensions in the data quality, like validity, reliability, completeness, precision, timeliness, and integrity. So valid data are the considered more accurate one. They measure what they are intended to measure, no? In the validity. And reliability, the data are measured and collected consistently. Definitions and methodologies are over time. It is the reliability, the data are measured for the collection of the consistency. If you have done research on the group, so if you're going to repeat the same research on the same group or a kind of group, then you're going to get the same kind of result. That is reliability. And then completeness is like for the we are having domain name systems, we are having data management systems, and they produce complete lists. They are producing eligible names. It is, you are not going to use your biasness. It is like a precision one. And the data have a very sufficient detail in case of accuracy. Precision is accuracy. Your data refers to the fitness of the measurement units. And the timeliness, data are up to date. Like sometimes we are having data, which is most of the time we say, like if you are having in review of literature, you have cited technological research which was held in 2002 might be is not applicable now in 2023, because that time the technology is different. Now we are in like 5G, and at that point of time we have not think of that we are going to use the virtual augmented reality. It is a very different one. Nowadays the world is changing, so we also need to follow the timeliness and the integrity, that the data are protected from the deliberate biasness. No need to adjust the biasness or the manipulation for us. So sometimes we are following uh, our political idea. We need to avoid it. We need to avoid the political. Here you can check the good data are always valid and reliable. If it is not equal to valid or reliable, then you can see the scarcity of the plot. You can check. And if your data is valid, but your data is reliable but not valid, it is like not accurate. Then when your data is valid and reliable, that means you are actually done your work. Your data is sorry, your data is refined and it is eligible for the production of the research. Then the quality matrix. In the quality matrix, we are having completeness and timeliness of data. If your data is not complete, if your data is having different timelines, then there is no use of data. We also need to follow internal consistency of the reported data. Reported data, government is releasing different data sets on regular intervals. So we need to check, like if government is releasing a data set which is related to the health condition, primary health condition in India, we need to check regularly. Like if you're going to take a data set of last 5 years, then we need to check. It is like the reported data need to be have systematic in nature. And we also need to add the external comparison with the population data. Population data, if we are going to generalize it, for example, census. In census, we are going to tab like each and every one. We are not talking about, we are not going for the samples, we are not going for the, like we are actually going to talk to the universe. So here, when we are going to create the data quality matrix, we need to check, we need to tab the population data. Whatsoever we have received, we are going to use their data into our researches. And we are having data management systems. We need to follow the source, collection, collation, analysis, reporting, and how we are going to use. So again, these are the same parameters we are going to follow. Again, we are going to follow the same indicators: validity, reliability, completeness, precision, timeliness, and integrity. Because when you are having all this in your data management system, when you are having these quality systems, then you are able to visualize your data correctly and more efficiently, effectively. Yes. So here we have having a discussion on the data visualization. How we are going to visualize the data. So just look at the data. So on the left hand side, we are having a picture. It is a raw data. And raw data cannot tell us a story, because when we are going to look at the data, it is just like a number. It is just like some kind of words we have seen. But the data visualizations give you a power to present your data into a pictorial or a graphical format. And when we are looking at this data, we are not being able to process it, because sometimes our brain feel like, it is very cumbersome. It is very difficult to understand. Then when, on the other hand, if we are going to have a data uh, which represents, or which has actually get by the uh, visualization techniques. For example, we have a bar chart, we are having a pie chart, we are having a graph. Then with the help of those charts, with the help of those those graphs, we are able to understand. Our brain is work more fast, and it is like very easy to understand. For example, if we are going to like share the data sets of recent world press freedom index, we like it is they have shared only the data, and on the basis of the data, we have represented, we have categorized, we have ranked that this country is having this number, this much of numbers, like 756, then it is number one. And when the country is not being able to score marks, this country is 154. So on the basis of the data they have collected, they have presented in a bar graph way. In the bar graph, we can check that this uh, country is having the highest secure highest number, that is in the first, and lowest is the on the last. Then we need to pick the right data presentation format. When you're going to use the distribution, when you're going to pull apart, then we are having correlation, we are having time series, compare, categories, and ranking. So first you can check the distribution. In the distribution, we are going to follow a scatter plot. And portfolio, we are going to use the pie chart. In correlation, we are going to use the lines. And in the time series, we are going to use the 3D one. And the compare category, we are going to follow the bar graph. And in the rankings, we are going to histogram. So here you can check the first one. Like if we are going to visualize a correlation. So for the correlation, we are going to use scatter plot. Here you can check, we have average daily temperature versus like visitors. Like how many visitors are coming on, like, and what are the average daily temperature. So here you can simply see we are having maximum number of visitors are on when we are having the highest number of temperature, like on 96 Fahrenheit, around 575, and like when we are having 94, then we are having around 600. So this data represent, and this data actually tells you the whole story. And when we are having data into a word format, it is difficult. So for the correlation, we are using the scatter plot. And then like if you're going to compare values for the multiple categories, then we are going to use bar graph. So here we are having like the different rates, like the proportion of the respondents who are experienced one barrier to optimization patient provider communication by race. So here we are having different races. It is like we are having different categories: white, black, African American, Hispanic, Latino, Asian, and other races. So these are the categories. For the categories, we are using bar graph. And when you're going to compare, like for the comparison, like you want to make a over of time, we are using this line chart. Most of the time when we are watching IPL, they represent a run rate. The run rate, it is a comparison over a time. For example, from 5 to 10 overs, what is the percentage? And like 5 to 10, like it has been increasing, it has been decreasing. So they are sharing the comparison between the lines. Or you, like if you want, you can also use like column graph. In the column graph also, if you are going to put a median between these two, You can also create the same, it is like the line chart. So you can use a line chart for the comparison, or you can also use common graph, so like column graph. And pie chart we usually use for represent the proportionate of the components which are up to 100. Like out of 100 people, out of 100 students, out of 100%, like what is the percentage they have seen? Like here we have example like South India account for 1/5 of India's recovered COVID-19 cases. So here the South India and the others. So it is a comparison between, like we are having 100%, and out of the 100%, like around 19% or around 20%, we are going to take, it is like a proportionate one. It is like a, we are, when we are actually taking from 100, we are using the pie chart. Now, I have a question for the participants, like what insights can you derive from this visualization? You are able to visualize it, like what visualization you are able to see, what able the insight you can get with the help of this chart? Yes, anyone?
That is, hello, sir. Hello, Rupet, sir.
Yes,
Vinod,
sir.
sir. This represents how many Americans uses Facebook the most, Instagram and Pinterest. So majority of the Americans use Facebook, then comes the Instagram, then comes the Pinterest, and the least is the Twitter.
Okay, wow, very good, very good, very good. Thank you. Great. So yes, it represent, when we are having data and we have represented a data in such a way that anybody can easily understand. Because as a researcher, it is like we are not writing for our own, we are writing for the masses. So here, when we are writing for the masses, it need to be easy to understand. So here in this visualization, they talk, like they have shared like which social media website is more popular in the states. Like the Facebook is the most popular social media platform, and it is represented in the categorical way. Like different categories we have, like Facebook, we have Instagram, we are having Pinterest, LinkedIn, and others. Now, what are the things we need to avoid while we are creating the data set? So here, what are the important things we need to avoid while we are using the different visualization techniques? Always try to avoid, 3D graphics. Most of the time, 3D graphics, although it is look very fascinating, it's look very appealing, but not every time you can use it. In the 3D, it is more cumbersome. It is very difficult to understand. For example, in the right-hand side, we are having a 3D graphic. We are having a bar graph, which is in 3D. It is very difficult to understand because in the last, you cannot see, it is not being visible. The last 3 rows. On the right-hand side, we have the chart now. So on the right-hand side, we cannot see what they have showed because might be it is less, might be it is like higher than it is. It is not visible. And on the other hand, when we are using pie chart is also not being required like all the time. Always remember when you are going to use proportionate, percentage, then you are going to use a pie chart. And the line graphs. So line graphs, most of the time we use line graphs because it is very easy and like we feel like it is very easy to understand. Like on the other hand, we are having left, like on the left chart, you can see we are having so much of lines, but like we are not being able to more concentrate. For example, the question is press freedom index of European countries. In European countries, we have France, we have Germany, we have like other European countries. So here you can see on the left hand side, it is very difficult because all the countries they are denoting, when you are going to denote with the different colors, it is difficult to read. But on the other hand, the same data you are going to represent, but you are going to more highlight on a specific point. For example, you want to show the press freedom index of India is increasing. No, so you can use this follow chart, and this line chart is also suggests, and it is also self-explanatory that you can check the others. The press freedom index is declined, but you can check the press freedom index of India. It is increasing and it is in the numbers. I have created a breakout session, but we are running short of time, so I'm not going to use it breakout session this room. But I'm going to share this task, this assignment on your WhatsApp group. So you need to just complete this assignment and you can submit. And like what you cannot interpret from a data alone. No, we are having causation. Causation is when you attribute the occurrence of any one event like entirely in a part or another event. Example, like we have air pollution can trigger glaucoma and Dettol kills COVID-19. So this is, so Dettol kills COVID-19. The causation, this is a randomized controlled experiment. When we're talking about causation, it is a randomized controlled experiment which is conducted to validate the causal link. Like what are the cause of this? Like whether this is the real cause or whether it has not been. So we are going to, first, it is a randomized controlled experiment. And then there is supporting research or a scientific fact to support the causal link. Like in the COVID-19, like Dettol kills COVID-19 germ or bacteria, or no, or the virus. So we need to support, we need to get a support of any scientific fact support, which actually creating a causal link. And the last point is the limitation of the causal links have the like have the insights with the other one. When we are having limitations, causal links have clearly been stated. The study finds chemicals are in the air that risk of the conditions by 6%, which is like done in the controlled condition. So here the next example. So we are having summer season. We are having dry, hot, and sunny summer weather. Causation is like because of the weather, we are going to eat ice cream. And because of the dry, hot, sunny summer weather, we are going to get sunburn. Is there any correlation between ice cream and sunburn? Is there any correlation between ice cream and sunburn?
Anyone can answer. Unmute your microphone.
You can unmute and
causal relationship. This visualization is showing the causal relationship. If there is a hot day and we can consume the ice cream.
Yes.
And it can save you with the sunburn.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, there is a causal relationship. Here we are having like dry, very hot and sunny summer weather. You are going to eat ice cream. And ice cream avoiding you sunburn. Like it is, you are going to use ice cream to not only dehydrate yourself, your body temperature is also rising. So there is a causal relationship. We need to understand when we are having data, we need to establish a causal relationship between the other indicators. Indicators, like we discussed in the previous slides, we need to understand the way they are there, and they are actually impacting the other one. No, the two variables, like we are having dependent variable, we are having independent variable. So we need to check the causal relationship between these two. And the last part of the presentation is the journalist, how we are going to use the work of data. You know? How we are going to use the data sets, how we are going to analyze the data sets, how we are going to present these data sets. So the first one, like the data journalism, it is evolving. Nowadays, data journalism, it is evolving day by day. In a nutshell, data journalism is storytelling or explaining a situation through the insights one gained from analyzing the data or using visualizations to communicate their insights. So this is data journalism. It is evolving on very daily basis. It is evolving very frequently because data journalism, it also depends on the technology. because nowadays we are having so many different tools, and with the help of those different tools, we are able to create, we are able to generate different stories. So here's Simon Rogers, uh, uh, guru, we can say that, in data editor in the Google. He shared that we are not playing with around anymore. There are was the phases where there is lot of all important answers we need to share with the help of the data. And I think, like he mentioned, I think that's over. There is too much for going into the world. I feel like it finally became mainstream and widespread across the globe. In the starting, people feel like data journalism, it is for a very specific group of people. But nowadays, now the companies, the organization, the mainstream media, they are also accepting, and they are also filing stories which are related to the data journalism. And like when the data is not utilized in a story which is effectively and like efficiently, then a story cluttered with the too much data makes with the bad story. A story that uses a data should focus on these are the two important points which the data telling us, and why these insights are important. Like, do you want to support navigate the government statement? Like, you can also draw intentions, you can draw attention to a specific country or sovereignty of a problem in it. Like recently, we have seen there's a crisis in our neighboring country, and the neighbor country, the officials who are experts in the military, they share that they have also they have shared their concerns related to might be because they are creating this, like they are having the neighbor countries, their military is facing some sort of turbulence. So what they are going to do, they are going to retaliate, and they are going to attack other countries. So we need to prepare ourselves. So how they have been shared this kind of information? So they have shared this kind of information with the help of the data, with the help of their previous experiences. They have also shared, like, is there any movement? So what is the movement? We are going to follow the causal relationship. And sorry, what are the useful resources for the data visualizations? You can use the storytelling with data. It is by course numbers Kansa. This is a very book, a very important book. We can say that this is a Bible for the storytelling with the data. And we have data journalism handbook. It is very basic one, like from the basic. If you want to start from the basic, then you can read this, the data journalism ebook. It is by the European Journalist Center. And then we are having medium and practical guides on creating data visualizations using different software. This is the part, this is the part of the first book. And what are the platforms you can use? You can use different platforms, like you can use data wrapper, you can use Flourish, you can use Infogram, and you can also use Tableau while you are going to visualize your data. So these are the visualization techniques you can use while you're going to your own data sets. And I think in the last session we discussed about data wrapper. Data wrapper is an open source software. It has been free to use. You need to just enter the data. Like if you have the data sets, so you need to convert your data set into JSON and upload those data sets into the data wrapper, and data wrapper will gives you and also recommend you that this particular data sets will represent with, like, either it is you are going to use pie chart, whether it's been suitable with the line graphs, whether it's used with the pie graphs. So they also suggest that this particular data sets will actually more effectively rate by on these the different presentation or visualization tools. Any questions till now? Anybody has? You can simply write in the chat box, or you can simply unmute and then you can speak. If you have any questions till now, or anything you want to You want me to repeat? Uh, anything you want me to repeat? Or any questions anybody has, you can simply write in the chat box. And
In between, sir, I have one question.
yes, ma'am.
Sir, like you have told us about the different platforms of data visualization. So
Yes,
they
ma'am.
are free. They are
Uh,
free.
yes, ma'am. Data wrapper is free. Then we are
Okay.
having data frame that is also free. It is
Hmm.
open source software and which is being free. You can use free of cost. But for the Tableau, for Infogram and Flourish, you need to make an account, and some graphs are like you can use basic graphs, but for the some graphs you need to pay certain amount of money. Like you need to buy the software, the whole software.
Okay, if we have a different set of datas and we will use these platforms, so we can make it more visually effective.
Yes. It is more visually effective and it is easy to understand because what our role is as a data analyst, and like nowadays we are having also more jobs related to the data visualizer and the data analyst in every field, like in education, in entertainment, in sports, we are having data analysts and data visualizers. So data visualization is important. We need to tell the story with the graph, with the visualizations, with the pie chart, with the histogram. When we are using this, it is more meaningful and it is more understanding and it actually gives you the more impact on the audience. So when the audience is, because we need to, when we are creating, we need to follow, we need to use the basic understandings of different data sets, whether our audience is able to read it or not. So we are having softwares which are open source, and Google is also having their own data sets and visualization. So if you have an account on Google, you can also use Google Visualizer. So in Google Visualization, they like it is like more of a kind of all the uh, visualizer tools which are available in PowerPoint or in Excel. It is like on Google.
Okay. And sir, I can see the chat box. If anyone has any question, dear participants, you can post it here in the chat box, or you can switch on your audio, your mic, and speak directly to the resource person if you have any query.
Poonam, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Good
Very good
morning,
morning,
sir.
sir. Very good morning,
Good
sir.
morning, Rubed. I
Yeah.
thought it was a very interesting talk. And maybe for the first time, we learned so much about data. Now, I just want to mention something that data verification is a process in which different types of data are checked for accuracy and inconsistency after data migration is done. In some domains, it is referred to as source data verification. And it is what you call somehow becomes very confusing with data validation. What is the difference between data validation and data verification? What's the difference? I
Sir,
may have quite a lot of data with me. How do I validate that and how do I verify that? Particularly from the source data verification point of view.
Yes, sir. In data validation, we are like if we had done our research on a specific group of people. So when we are going to apply the same method, then we are going to get the same results. So every time when we are going to apply the same method on like same kind of respondent, then we are going to get the same kind of results. So that is the data validity and data source verification. It is more of like we are having different sources, like where we are actually getting the data. For example, for the government sources, considered as the primary sources, because most of the time the government, when they have released the data sets, they are accurate. They are like not misleading. It is being like collected in such a way, and it is like a perfect one. But on the other hand, we are having organizations or the third parties who are collecting the data or who are outsourcing the data. So sometimes they are like biased, because like when we are talking about the rankings and the positions, so different rankings released by, like some says we are number one says we are number one, like every news channel suggests that they are the number one, but the data set which are released by the government, it is more accurate. So data source which is being released by the government, it is the more accurate and it is more validate. But on the other hand, the data which was released by the third parties, or the uh, uh, which is not being controlled one, and with, like they are having some kind of biasness, so we are not going to include our data. So in the data source verification, we are going to remove these kind of data, and we are going to take only the primary data which we have collected.
You mean to say that all data which we possess, means data validation makes sure that data is clean, correct, and meaningful, while data verification ensures that copies of the data are as good as the original? Is that the correct kind of a definition between data validation and data verification?
Yes, sir.
Because
Yes.
data validation and verification are two important processes of making sure that data possesses these two qualities:
Yes.
validation as well as verification.
Yes.
To my mind, personally, I feel verification of the data, particularly in the light of these days, the social media onslaught and fake news and all, is really important. How do you validate may become secondary, but verification, what do you have to say? What do you feel that verification of data, and how do we do it? I keep on getting a lot of messages. There are what you call Jamtara gang and all kinds of gangs which are sending all kinds of information. After collecting some data here and there, how do they get it? How do you verify this data?
Sir, actually, those data actually is being leaked by the third parties, because when we are actually creating account on different platforms, for example, we have created an account of Zomato. So Zomato will ask, what is your email ID? What is your phone number? What is your name? What is your location? So on the basis of this information, and this information, like I'm not sure that the Zomato is leaking, but the third party who is collecting this data, they are actually leaking to the Jamtara gang, and Jamtara is like using into the malpractices.
You see, I don't know if Jolly will permit. I have got hold of one very small video clip, about 5 to 6 minutes, on the importance of data. It's a Pakistani journalist who's talking about it. I don't know whether I can show it during the break or something.
Yeah, maybe at break, sir, because we have one more speaker fixed from TV9, Sweta.
Yeah.
So we need to meet during the break, sir.
Yeah,
we'll call you and yeah, definitely.
We can show this small little video clip,
Yeah.
because any kind of a audio visual stuff also breaks the monotony of a long talk by somebody. So
It's
it may be
definitely,
a
sir,
little
we'll do that.
good
Yeah.
break for everybody. But then I have it on my pen drive. You'll have to tell me how to put it on the screen like this so that you all can see it.
Sure, sir. We'll connect to the IT and we'll guide you.
Now,
through,
I have
sir.
it in
Yeah.
my pen drive,
Sure. Yeah.
and I can put it during the break for about 3 to 4 minutes, 5 minutes. A Pakistani, very senior journalist talking about the importance of data. Importance of data, and it'll be interesting viewing.
I would like to add the what Dr. Rubaid was adding, the verification of the data. We need to check always what is the methodology. I'm adding on to that for I think it's also for everybody's thought process. We are having this discussion. The methodology is correct or not. The this well defined or not. So that is very important for the journalists when coming to tell the story. There are a lot of stories out there when a particular story with data which has been taken out to use to create the story for the public. So always it is advisable, and it is so important to consider that methodology is correct, tools used is correct. That comes as part of the verification very much. And also sometimes also be noticed there are stories in the way when they analyze, and the interpretation angle also has gone, and some of the journalists also I put it as a story. And other data verification, they have broken that story, that it was a wrong story and wrong information and wrong interpretation has gone to the public. So this is also very risky. This is so important. I want to emphasize when Dr. Rubaid, I'm very happy sir, that Professor Dakin sir has brought this point to consideration. This is very important to consider before blindly taking any story. And there are a lot of data out over there. These two key elements are very important. Yeah. There are some
So I can see there is one observation from one of our participants, Sunit Mukherjee sir. He has written data verification, on the other hand, is actually quite different from data validation. Verification performs a check of the current data to ensure that it is accurate, consistent, and reflects its intended purpose. So, yes, correctly said by Sunit sir. And now I am moving. There is no any other query in the chat box, and no one is. So I'm going to wind up this session with a few comments. Not comments, it's an observation key what we have learned in this session. Like Dr. Rubaid has given emphasis on the visualization to represent the large data. Like we have a lot of data, but how we are going to represent it for the masses, especially because we are making stories, we are telling our students you have to make story for the masses, and how we can segregate that data and we can use the different platforms. Like he has already told there are different platforms, some are paid, some are free, and you can visualize your data on the different platforms like Data Wrapper, Flourish, Infogram, Tableau. And he has already talked about there are different techniques to represent a data, like the pie chart. Sometimes we are using the pie chart and the different types of infographics. But what is suitable for what kind of data, we have to think about it, because he has given the different comparisons by showing these different charts and infographics, how we can represent in an easy and simple manner to the masses, so that they can understand these stories in one go. After watching that one visual, we can get the story of around 1000 2000 word, what we are saying. After watching that particular visual, we will get the story within few seconds. There is we have to understand the causal relationship, like what we are using the different variables when we are doing the research, and how we can represent it in an easy form by using these data visualization techniques. And overall key, what is the reliable data, what is the validity of that data. So we have to keep all these things in our mind. So now, without wasting our time, I want to extend my warm thanks to Dr. Rubaid Ashfaq for giving the insights on these data visualization techniques and on this session. Thank you so much, Rubaid sir. So now our next speaker and next session is on data-driven journalism, and it is by our own Jolly ma'am. And I will take this privilege to introduce Jolly ma'am on this platform. So Dr. Jolly Jose is an associate professor and assistant director research in Amity School of Communication, Amity University, Uttar Pradesh. And she is also the PhD coordinator at her own school, Amity School of Communication, from 2022. And Dr. Jose has a blended career experience of teaching, research, and community organization, administration, and alternate media. So ma'am is having experience of 14 years of teaching experience, as well as she has industry experience of around 13 years. And prior to MIT, she was the dean in charge at Xavier University, Bhubaneswar, for around 5 years. And she was also guest faculty at Shri Padmavati State Women University, Tirupati, Andhra Pradesh. And if we'll talk about the different research work of Jolly ma'am, Dr. Jose has worked in the 4 international development projects with Christian Aid, 2 UGC major research project on children and media. She was the principal investigator of 6-year-long live research project with NGO based in Kerala. And she has completed the Pan-India project in rebuilding the lives of migrant workers in India, a project of Catarines, Australia during 2022-23 as a principal investigator. And she is the author of 2 books and got more than 22 research papers published for her credit as a first author. Her teaching interests are communication research, journalism, communication theories, journalism, media law and ethics, and development communication. And at present, she guides 5 research scholars at ESCO. And if we'll talk about the curriculum designing, teaching and research, she also contributed by organizing 4 international conferences and faculty development programs. And Dr. Joss was awarded with PhD in 2011 from the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, Shri Padmavati Women's University, Tirupati, in the stream of new media and children. Ma'am, now over to you on the topic, whatever is there, data-driven journalism. So ma'am will continue this session with the data-driven journalism and already shared her PPT. I hope it is visible. Neha ma'am, please.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It's visible, and my PPT is visible. Yes, my audio is
Yes,
fine.
ma'am, it is visible.
Okay,
Audio is
thank you
perfect.
so much. Thank you, Dr. Poonam, for the long introduction. I will take a quick run because we are already acquainted with Professor Dr. Rubaid's session. And this session we designed to add additional information which is required as a faculty who take this subject for a teaching subject in our curriculum. As it is mentioned here, data plus journalism plus data is equal to data journalism. Yeah. Let me go. Yeah. So data journalism is whole new possibilities. I'm just adjusting my screen right now. Yeah. The new possibility that combine the traditional nose for the news and the ability to tell a story with the scale and range of digital information which is available. That is where comes the journalism created with data. We don't miss the sense of journalism. That is one of the emphasis as journalists and the faculties way to express. And the uses data and visuals, we have just seen that. To what does it do to the journalist? It helps to tell a complex story through engaging infographics and visualizing, for example, world poverty. It is huge, but it can brought it down to a simple person's conceptualization and to an understanding that how can we relate to as an individual. So that is also a process of the news gathering. Data journalism is also a news gathering. The traditional, we go to the field or sit at desk and we gather, and data we see the next speaker will take you into that process. How do we do that? Yeah. And the journalist also reveal the abstract thread that is like into that affects people based on their age, gender, education, which is otherwise normally it is very difficult to connect. But by storytelling techniques using the data, which we can do it very easily, which is also mentioned by Professor Rubaid before me. And one of the concerns, one of the most significant problem that citizens face when making choices is how to process data. There are huge things are around and how to address. And for journalists also, there are so many things, but how to use it into. This search has led the journalist to search for, use it in the form of the print, in the form of the visual, in the form of audio, and also very much of everyday choices and actions. This data is not far away, but linking all these in the form of not just numbers alone, but there are other things also. Data journalists can tell the stories, like human interest stories, like how much food one waste. I just put it here. The story, one of these days it's come these kinds of stories. On a world, while it may not be much available, but for journalists, it goes, data is available, and use that particular kit to use it and to tell this story. And just put few pictures over here so that we know that, like unemployment rate, how much of the climate change, to tell the degree of the story, so that we are emotionally linked, like in the previous day sessions, how to connect, how to tell the story using the data where you are linked. For example, the climate change, the picture of the earth over here, which is being narrated using the data very beautifully, the infographics which has been used along with data and some narration over here. So we can see that it's a way we can present it. Another point I want to mention is that it's a tool to navigate where the story is lying, where the information are there, hidden. So that is another way the tool can be used, data can be used to navigate also for this purpose. I think my what's that? Okay. One, filtering, we have seen how to filter it along with my previous speaker. And it's like something like a photo storytelling approach. Through the visual, we can use it. So before telling a story, we got a lot of data, how to picturize it and present it to the listeners or your viewers. It's not just for the print media alone. We have seen during pandemic the excellent way the journalists have been telling the story. All of our data literacy has increased during this time. So this is also the way to see things, way to tell rich stories, and way to save time also. So the three elements, the visualization has to see where we want to, and emotional elements can also be attached to it. The degree of empathy, sympathy, distancing, closeness, all that, the visualization of the data can, that then the story can be very much a rich way can be presented. As you say, we have the notion that data is very dry, but these days you can see that how using the color, the combinations, it is being presented in a very beautiful and much attractive manner. And also we know that it is trustworthy. Data makes us to believe, to trust the source. Yeah. So the finding the stories, how to, it's always, it was been there. Finding the stories in data, it was also tradition. It is not very new, but it is being done in a different way. So the basic questions, and as a journalist, you can ask is that is an exclusive buried in the database, and are figures accurate? This is what we just discussed just before. And do they prove or disprove a problem? And it's a viable action to a traditional journalism. So this is viable addition to a traditional journalist. It's something traditional journalistic way we approach and do it, and it is adding to Is this the general way of telling? Is there a new approach you can have? So these are, you can approach, a journalist can go on searching the story. And some of the obstacles to use data is the ignorance of what is available, and where can confirmation to be found, that is the sources to be found. This is the same concern has come just before. And these answers, the Sweta will be telling us. I won't get into those details. And this information is too technical or complicated, the concern is there. And whether it would make a good story of its worth the effort. These are general obstacles to use the data. And in the genre, which diverges from intelligence and human rights research and expands our notion of data into videos, and there are crowdsourced social media and other digital artifacts, and so many resources we can look at it, and there are journalists who specializes in those area. One may not be doing every way, one's own interest, these area can be explored. So this is also another beautiful way of working on it. And these days, as it is available, you need not depend much on coding of the data, because it is all done by the AI. And post-truth was one of the concerns. Now, the data presented over here can immediately tell a lot of trustworthy and the realistic stories. Yeah. The reporters were almost pure news gatherers. But here, the data journalism need to bring a sense of data analysis to understand the data and the process the data based on just journalistic concepts. We don't miss the journalistic concepts when you speak about data journalism. This is very, very important. Yeah. And for an investigator, you can, journalists alone need not work and may not work. It's a teamwork. The data visualization a section can work, and a journalist would go and find out what it is and what text or the visual effects, the angle of the story, the journalist can add on to that. That way, a better understanding of the issue or a concern can be brought in with the teamwork. And so data helps us to ask better questions. How much, how many, and how less? And these numbers gives a curiosity into the minds of the readers or the listeners. That is also very important. And we can report more efficiently and quantify the information, and more authority journalists gets it because data is more trustworthy. It is believable, it is acceptable. And we can work on the already structured data journalists can work on, and work as a watchdog. What's really happening by reporting? Report becomes very easy, and also give a lot of context for the breaking news. Quite a number of breaking news also we have noticed along with the data. How many people, how many compared to the previous the war situation, what was the human damage, how many numbers or what is the frequencies or type of technologies, the comparative stories and all, we can see that, for example. So those many numbers of kind of breaking stories, a lot of breaking stories we can see these days based on data driven. What it cannot do, this is also very important to understand that. I missed one. Yeah. So it doesn't replace the show ladder reporting, that we need reporter need to be there, the human intelligence needs to be there. And it is better for what, but not for why. We have seen the mojo also that we cannot just much of the why, but a combination of the both, we can see that again can make. But we are looking for what sort of stories data would give. And the next part, it is the rest with the story. Yeah. And understand how it has been collected and get the methodology. These are the two elements that journalists need to explore. That is the role of the journalist, and as the nature of the journalist, skepticism and curiosity always needs to be there before blindly taking any data. Yeah. Data created by humans can make mistakes. Data created by AI may be less mistake, but this also being guided by the human, and therefore there is a need to always cross verifying and validating the data. Okay. Another advantage is to be more organized, accurate, and less likely to miss errors. And editing becomes very easy over here to make more complex stories very simple. And the impact can be more because the global and the local connectivity with a diagram we can easily brought in, which already discussed in the previous one, like the climate changes, what is happening here, what is happening in different parts of India itself, in global region, we can connect it. And what was the previous, all those can be visualized way we can present it during with the data. We need very less space to tell the story and very less time to tell the story. And looking into some of the tradition, where does it come from, where this has been a little bit of the history background, you take it 2016. Stocklin is a managing editor of the known pro investigative site ProPublica, documented the history of the data. That is the first documentation that has happened, that is dating to 1800, in which newspapers taught readers how to understand a bar chart. That one of the earliest stories. And empirical journalism is being coined by the Reuters, and the social science methods in the stories, we all are used to that. They started to conduct survey, and the information they started to use it in telling the stories. And in 2006, the founder of the information service, which enables users to find out what has been happening in that area. So this is all started by some of the journalists, and they start to tell the story. And in the 1970s, precision journalism was going to describe this kinds of a story gathering. From their own locality, we can see that this is the earlier story style, using the real-time data, bringing into the publications. That is what we can see, that in this a lot of it has been happening. And one of the earliest, the kind of data stories are from 1821. Research methods took the practice of the journalism, like what has been happening, behavioral science, how do they behave, they brought into the story. So in the early 18th century also, the late 18th century also, we could identify the data has been used as the stories. So the early work model was they hire the researchers, or they themselves conduct researchers, analyze it, and they could document it, and they carry the story. One of the such stories was that how the mislabeled and contaminated was the milk which has been used, it has been publisher of Franklin's Illustrated newspaper, which has been there. We could the earlier stories. Yeah. And in 90s, computer assisted reporting has started. It was a genre. started by Elliot Jones in the province of Rhode Island. And in this branch, reporters seek out documentary evidences in electronic format. That's what they did. They went to investigate the story. It's the tip of the story, then we go with the story idea, then bring it back, and they started to report it. This is another that is also kind of the data they started to use it. The style of inquiry was the same, like the investigative style. They start with the research questions or investigative research question, went and found and got the information back. In 1952, CBS network in the United States tried to use experts with the mainframe computer to predict the outcome of the presidential election. So this is also one of the important thing which is in the 19th century, we started to use the data. And 1967, data analysis started to catch on. And 1967, Detroit Free Press used a mainframe computer to analyze the survey of the Detroit residents for the purpose of understanding and explain the serious riot that has happened in that summer. And they used to analyze the story. And again, the Guardian in the United Kingdom used some of the same approaches to look at the racial rights. That is the time the human interest stories, what is really happening in the society. They wanted to take the data and start to reflect these stories, had a lot of impact on the readers. In 1970, Philadelphia Inquirer reports Donald Burlett and James Staley to analyze sentencing patterns in the local courtroom system. This is one of the way they try to analyze the story, and they found some of the patterns which are being used, and the story also helped what type of crime, how severe is the crime, how shallow the crime, how do they define the crime based on the sentences and behind which is the crime. Based on the sentence, they were able to trace the nature of the crime. That was one of the very significant way the data they started to use it. Yeah. We can also see that the traditional journalists also, from the traditional storytelling style, moving on to the way of storytelling, the data storytelling, the Pulitzer Award that's been recorded in the history of the journalism. There's a need to move on to, they realize the need to shift into. And 1980s, about 50 other journalists across, you can see that consulting with those data journalists and shifting into. And in again 1980s, softwares, the journalists start to use the softwares, the 9-track expresses software. They, as per the history which is being tracked, says that they started to use some of the softwares. It doesn't say what exactly they have been done it, but it says that if anybody have the information, you can add on to that. They say that they started to use softwares to track the stories, to process these stories also. So emphasis on computer assisted reporting started in the 1989. And some of the schools and organizations started to come up in training professional journalists. And they started to use it not only in the Europe, in the southern part of the world, and also Asian region. The data focused journalism started to come up. And investigative reporters were the mainly started to go into data related journalism, that we can see that this is one of the trend. And computer assisted reporting, generally it was very popular there with the car. It was a practical way of using it that. Yeah. 90s started to connect that the use of internet, spreadsheet, database managers, and they were all well attended by journalists, the training which is being given, and the combination was working on for the deliverance of the journal, the practice of the journalism. And the Center for Analytical Reporting, we can see that it coming up in 1998. And in Brazil, you can see that 2002, training in data journalism, which is being coming up as part of the core mission. And in 2001, you can also see that a strong computer-assisted reporting track and hands-on training. So by this time, many parts of the world, journalists start to get trained and they start to use to the analytical reporting, data-related, investigative, a combination of this again started to see across. Yeah. Drew Solian is one of the person is been now recorded as the leader in the data journalism. And 2009, the increasing number of computer programmers, coders in journalism resulted in the creation of hacks or the hackers. And from them, the journalists used to get information and they started to use it. The deep data visualization for analysis also started to come up this time, not just telling the numbers, but moving on to how to present the data in a different manner, not that the way which we are into this time. Started to come up in the US first. I go a little faster. I think I have a little less time now. So one of the software, they started to use the Google mashup of Chicago crime data. This is the first one. They started to use a lot of data from multiple sources, and they put it together. So this is widely available today. And the hackers, they started to use, I just skipped this one. And Silicon Valley, Bert Herman brought journalists and technologists together. This is one of the big efforts the journalism field has taken to tell the story. They found they can scrape the data from website and make it more manageable, visual, and interactive. And 2009, 10, and 11 was the breakthrough for the journalists, for the data journalism. You can see that it in Canada, computer-assisted reporting starting, and the comprehensive primer with a special emphasis on the car in Canada, and journalist Simon Rogers launching Guardian's data blog, and data-driven journalism programs that was organized workshops throughout Europe and establishment of datajournalism.com. It is still open, we can refer that. See somebody joining there. And some of the those examples you can see over here that Afghan war diaries, data of late, many recent big happenings, the inside real stories has been delivered to the public using these stories. And Global South, I already mentioned these facts. And in Asia, journalists country like including first India, Malaysia, and Philippines, and South Korea using digital tools, especially those for the visualization. This is one thing very significant. And we have early the newspapers like the New Indian Express, a lot start going into this, and followed by the number of newspapers and the other media, visual media also started using this. And 2015, text, video, and sound, they started using the investigative stories. More sophisticated visualizing data through the map, social network analysis, or change over the time in both news gathering and the presentation. We started to use. I just know and the type of the data. What are the types of the data we can use it? Like besides the numbers, text as data. This is another way of approach. We can see that we started to use in the researches, and these are the other potentials more to come in the Indian journalism and other journalism. We can see that like post, speech, emails. There are lengthy of information and statistical summaries of the President Trump's what have been using it likewise. And these days, we can also see that in Indian context, our Honorable Prime Minister's speech, what I've been using, I've been repeatedly telling these kinds of analysis is also possible to use it. And we can calculate or calculated the length of the stories and the collection of historic speeches. All those are the possibilities which has been 2016. It is being done. It is one area. And another text-based is the mentions who said what, when, and how many times. So this is we use in the research, hardcore researches. This is another area which can be the potential to use. There's a lot. Like we can identify the intention, the focuses, and a lot of approaches of ordinary people, groups, social leaders, political leaders, business, advertisement. All these can be analyzed, and there's a huge potential to use this data. And people, places, nouns, verbs, all these can be processed. That is called the natural language processing. NLP tools enable the extraction of proper names, names of places, companies. Then the marketeers using journalists also can be used it for information purpose. And also this can be used also for the media literacy for the public, where to focus and how to focus, what is the focus of journalism itself. All those can be very good stories. Yeah. Then classification. The text can be classified into categories according to certain FP, for example, predefined features using machine learning algorithms. So this is another, and this can be analyzed first when we do this, and a combination of the number of times which is being used can again create further stories. You can link the previous speaker, Dr. Ruby's analysis on further analysis can be used. And the sentimental analysis also can be used very much when we are in social media, or the other where number of platforms we have. And in many forms, these are other potentials. I'm not going into sentimental analysis as we are from research context, and journalists can use it as a very important platform to tell the stories as information, as education, as for a social change, or a community building, whatever be the purpose. Yeah. So besides the working on the numbers, there is a potential for a journalist also to becoming a text miner. They can go search this, you can make a beautiful stories out of it. Another area to search the potential for journalists is to use the sources, go for the sources like public data sets, leaked terms of the emails, scanned documents, satellite imagery, sensor data. So all those can be sources. But it is very important to understand and to use the proper data. So these days also see the journalistic organization produces data-driven research, and they themselves are accountable to the readers. And journalists also responded to the challenges of accounting for their methods in different ways. when they use it. Like, for example, I was maybe in 2016, I was following a story down south from Kerala only. Uh, a major newspaper was publishing that the consumption of certain type of food by the Keralites. So when I was tracing the source, they just taken 25 people who are working in IT sector, just 25, and they were highlighting this too, and they were never telling what are the sources and what are the methodology of selection and all that. That was one of the major mistake committed by the journalist, also the editors. So this has to be very important. I remember I wrote back to them, this is their source was not verified. This is not a verified data, not a reliable data. And the last one point I wanted to point is the reproducible data journalism. It is widely regarded as a pillar for the modern scientific. The already data sets are there. They can go and reproduce. That is what Sweta is going to look at. And part of it is that Dr. Rubaid is already said, this is the huge area there we can keep working on. And I want to summarize and finalize my point of view that an excellent way is the data storytelling is an excellent way of storytelling, and the best story is equal to machine plus human intelligence plus social justice plus personalization. Personalization, I mean the relatedness of the story. I close with this and I open, if time permits, for any discussions and questions related to it.
So anyone has any question or query, directly you can speak to your mic. Directly you can open your mic and you can ask to the resource person, Dr. Jolly Jose is happy to answer your queries.
Yes, good morning, Madam Jolie. It was a wonderful presentation. Like, I don't have a question because it's so precise and clear presentation you gave. But my point is that data journalism has its own merits, understandably, no doubt. But under the deluge of data, how a journalist picks up the threads and builds a story, that is important. For example, on Election Commission of India's website, there is plethora of data, particularly about a candidate, say, who fought the Lok Sabha election in 2004, then in 9, then in 14, then in 19, and how has his wealth grown all these years. But the problem is that maybe due to the workload and other kind of things, the journalist, whether it is the print journalist, I should not be generalizing, but I'm general comment, they don't use it to build up a story. Data is there. Data is there in the annual reports of the companies, in the various kind of websites of the ministries and other kind of thing. And intelligent journalists build up stories depending upon the data. So I am reminded of that शेर by Gulzar कि मिसरा गालिब का है कैफियत सबकी अपनी अपनी. How one interprets that data, that is very important, and that is where here I feel as media educator, the training should be on how students can scrape the data and build a story with the social concern or which concerns the humanity at large or the Janta Janardhan at large. That's my observation. And thank you for your wonderful presentation. Right. Thank you, ma'am.
So very much I agree to that. It's so important. That's at the first point I put it up, Professor Sunil Mukherjee, that it is journalism and data. I am sure Shweta will take us through how to get into and where to get into.
Yeah. So, ma'am, it was a clear-cut presentation, correctly said by Sunil sir. But I will conclude this session with these words. Ki ma'am has started talking about the historical perspective of data-driven journalism, how it has been started and how a lot of journalists in the past, they have used the large data and they have presented their story. One of the journalists got the Pulitzer Award also for the same. How he has used the data and how we can depict. It's not only we have data in the large data sets, but we can like Prime Minister is telling Man Ki Baat, and people are doing a lot of research because they have completed the 100 episodes of Man Ki Baat, and how we can analyze that text into our stories. And there is a lot about what are the sources, the authentic sources. We have to drag the data to make our story, and we have to, like ma'am has mentioned, what are the milestones in the analytical reporting started back in the 1960s, 1998. There are a lot of journalists, those who are using those data in their stories. So how people are using it, like as a media educator, how we can inculcate this knowledge into our students to make their stories more authentic, more reliable, and the people who want to read it more, because these are the techniques we can use in our story to make our audience to get more insights about that particular topic. So but here, thank you so much, ma'am, for this comprehensive talk. I must say it's not interactive, but yes, there is a lot of insights because it was very clear-cut presentation. And our next guest, Ms. Shweta Kothari, is also joined us. But Shweta ma'am, we will take a small break because in the digital screen we are here since 10 o'clock. So we will take not more than 5 minutes break, and we will again join, and we will start how practically how we are using those data in our stories, and our guest is also ready. Thank you so much, Jolly ma'am, for the session.
So happy to see you, Shweta, here. We are really looking for, I'm personally very much looking forward to attend your session again. And I'm grateful that you accepted that you are here. There is we are adjusting our own time. We want you to, as we spoke, we wanted to have you in the campus. And we personally definitely will meet you another day. And we are completely closed down today. Our campus is completely closed today.
Absolutely. I look forward to visiting the campus.
Yeah, yes, that's a promise. Yes, yes.
So there is a small break of 5 to 6 minutes. We will resume this session at 11:45 sharp. With
43, 11:43. Yes.
Okay, 43.
We don't want to waste the time of Shweta.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll begin at 11:43. Participants will take a digital break here.
And also be ready, I think, to practice, do some practices. I'm sure Shweta will take us to practice online. Please get ready for the practice also. I think, Poonam, now we have more people joined. We may have another photograph, I guess. Yeah. So you'll get more faces.
So I request everyone kindly switch on your camera for a few seconds to take a screenshot of this session. Because in the hybrid mode, this is the only way we can take a group photograph.
And it is also good that we are here, everybody on one frame. Otherwise, we were on a different platform, ideally.
Yes, ma'am. Requesting everyone, if you are not facing any technical issue, kindly switch on your camera for a few seconds. I can see Dr. Archana ma'am is here. Colonel Dagan sir is always here to support us. Rubesa, Neha ma'am, Vinu, Sunit sir, Shweta ma'am is already joined. Surya ma'am, Kajal, Amit, Kamna, a lot of people. Amir who is very active in this FTP. I can see few people, few participants, they are very much active. And definitely we will connect you for the further purposes related to academics and other.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, Jolly ma'am. Good afternoon, Poonam ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon. How are you? It's good to
I'm
see
good,
you.
ma'am, and I'm sorry it's morning right now
All right.
for you, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Actually, Jolly Ma'am session was basically, it helped us also because we are into framing of syllabus for NEP, and we are keeping data journalism as a subject. So it helped us also to frame the syllabus. I have noted down those points. So thank you, Jolly Ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Without wasting much time, our guest is here for her session. You can see on the screen, Shweta Kothari is here on the screen. So I formally welcome you, Shweta, on this platform of our FDP on Upskilling Industry Skills for Media Educator 5.0. And I can see with the blessings of our advisor, Colonel R.K. Dagan, sir, we are going to start this session. Welcome, sir, formally, because you have joined in between and I forgot to welcome you formally here on this platform. So now I will give the brief intro about the Shweta Kothari. Shweta Kothari is a very known face, and she's a journalist as well as news presenter. And she is a senior editor with TV9 Network and teaches undergraduate and postgraduate students of journalism at Jamia Millia Islamia and Bharatiya Vidyapeeth. Shweta has previously worked with CNBC TV 18, NDTV, and NewsX. She holds a master's degree in journalism from the University of Sussex, and Shweta is a keen follower of gender and public policy issues. And today she'll talk on data journalism, storytelling techniques and practices, how we are using those technicalities in our practical news stories. So without wasting much time, over to you, Shweta. Welcome once again.
Thank you very much, Dr. Poonam Gaur, for that introduction. I am not a renowned face. I wish I was, but I'm another journalist in media who's struggling to educate not just the entire community about need for better data storytelling, but also students. Now, when I was invited for this session, one of my concerns was that I may not have the right relevant inputs or a degree in data journalism. But then while I was preparing for this session over the course of last 2 days, it appeared to me that data, in fact, is an integral part of everything that I do. So as a business journalist, if I have to tell a story, there is no better way of telling a story if I do not incorporate data. I'll give you a quick example before we move into this session. All of us know that Go First as an airline has gone under in the last couple of days, right? So Go First, a low-cost carrier, went under, filed for insolvency, is currently with NCLT, which is the National Companies Appellate Law Tribunal or Law Tribunal. So NCLT has given a full moratorium to Go First. And all of these are data points, right? It doesn't concern students very much, and it does not really concern even average individual. What concerns average individual is that I was paying 10,000 rupees to go from Delhi to Mumbai just about 2 weeks ago, and now I'm paying 18,000 rupees. And that is the starting point of data journalism in an everyday life. What concerns an individual, what concerns the common man, the aam aadmi, what concerns them is what comes out of their pocket. If they have to pay through their noses, if it's hampering their day-to-day activity. An average individual, and we are an aspirational country, every person wants to fly at some point in their life, and only 1% of Indians get to fly. So 1% of Indians get to fly out of 1.3 billion people in this country, and we only have we used to have 5 airlines. Now we only have 3 to 4 of them. SpiceJet not looking very good. Go First not operating anymore. And the fact that they used to have approximately 4.5 lakh passengers. They would fly 4.5 lakh passengers just until a week ago, means that those 4.5 lakh passengers will have to be absorbed by existing airlines. So you see, I gave you so much data in the last 2 minutes that I've been talking. All of that data if put in a chart, in a graph, in a bar, gives way to data visualization, which is consumption of data in an effective manner. So my job essentially is to deal with data. And why do I deal with data? Why should anybody deal with data? It is because it supplements every issue. India has a lot of corruption. It's a statement, does not have any supportive facts or evidence to it. But the moment I say that approximately 1/3 of politicians in this country have corruption charges levied on them, now there comes the data, right? And it gives some weightage to what I'm saying. So as a journalist who works as a journalist full-time from Monday to Friday, data becomes a part of my daily life. And as someone who teaches on a Saturday, I'm able to then incorporate my daily learnings and implement them for students, because I know those are the students, and your students tomorrow are going to be journalists like you and me. So what better to drive your practical experience and then implement it for people you are teaching, those young kids, those young students who are going to be the future of journalism tomorrow. Now I'm going to share, I've made a short PPT. I'm known to be not boring, so I'm hoping to not bore anybody. I have a very short PPT here, about 10 to 11 slides, which I'm going to share now. Let me know if you can see my screen. Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Let me start presenting it.
Yeah.
Okay, so data journalism, storytelling techniques and practices. Now, I've been given an hour and a half, so I can't really go into details of what all it encapsulates and how to do it, but I can obviously give you an insight of what storytelling techniques that you can use and how data then can be incorporated in your storytelling to tell a better story, right? So let's start. Need for data. Why do we need data? As I was saying, you need data to tell a compelling story. And everything we do as educators is about telling a story. I remember being a very young child and not understanding chemistry at all, right? And then in class 11th, I happened to meet a teacher who was so good while teaching chemistry that I started developing interest. So a good educator will tell you stories. A bad educator will give you numbers and facts and figures. And for me, it has therefore become very important as a teacher myself to tell compelling stories every time I'm trying to teach my students, every time I'm trying to put a point across. So need for data is to tell a compelling story, and without stories, we are nobody. We are in profession of storytelling, whether we like it or not. It also supports your position. It supports what you're trying to say. As I mentioned, inflation is under control. If I'm able to give data for inflation today, as opposed to inflation, which is a hefty term for mehengai. So every day we hear people mehengai बढ़ रही है. We hear them saying mehengai बढ़ रही है. But if I'm able to give them data on mehengai today and compare it with data on mehengai about 10 years ago, then I can supplement my position. I can support my argument that mehengai बढ़ रही है या घट रही है. It's easy to stand up and say महंगाई बढ़ रही है, महंगाई घट रही है, but the idea that there is data out there and that can be used effectively supplements your position. It highlights the value of your argument, and it is central to journalistic principles. I would like to think that as teachers of journalism, we are partly journalists ourselves, and it is central therefore to journalistic principle of truth and fairness that we supplement everything we say, and we never say anything without having facts in hand, right? We have to have enough facts in hand, and that supplements the principle of truth and fairness to have data that can supplement what you're saying at all points. Therefore, data becomes crucial to everything we do, everything we say, everything that comes out of our mouth. Moving on. What's data-driven storytelling? So data journalism, let me just bring this here. Okay, so data journalism or storytelling requires blending hard facts with communication to develop an engaging narrative. So to break it down for you, you are essentially blending hard facts and you are making it sound in an engaging fashion, which is a narrative around facts, but a story. So I'll give you an example of how can you build a narrative around facts and tell it in a very interesting manner. How many of you have heard of cryptocurrency crash? I'm sure all of you as educators must have heard of cryptocurrency. It used to give you returns, 10x returns. For some people have earned 100x returns in the last couple of years who invested in cryptocurrency at a right opportune time. Today, markets crashed. So people who made millions and billions lost a lot of money. They still have money. Crypto still has a lot of value, but it lost. And suddenly now it's picking up again. If I were to tell a story around crypto crash, the idea would be to not use so many hard facts. The idea would be to take an example of a person X, and that person X who had 5 crypto coins amounting to nothing about 10 years ago, then suddenly became a billionaire and then suddenly lost it all again. So use that data, but use it in a more personal manner to tell a story which is more engaging. Because let's admit it, people only like to read and listen to stories that are personal. So to be personal is to tell a relevant story that is driven by facts. Now, data journalism also uses visualization techniques like your charts, your images to convey meaning to the data. So any data in a raw form is tedious. It's tardy. If you give me lots of tables and if you give me lots of numbers and lots of figures, as an audience, I don't care unless you tell it to me in a way that I can understand, I can interpret better. So data-driven stories, therefore, are created through analyzing and filtering a large number of data set. So you have to filter a large number of data set to make it sound easier and more convenient to your people. If you can't do that, you're not helping anybody. I'm sorry, can you see the bottom of the screen or is it covered in, I don't know how to.
It is visible.
No, it is visible.
It's visible. Yeah, very clear.
Okay, 1 second. Something's not working on my, okay. Okay, all right, so let's move on. What can you do to make a better story? What can you do to tell a better story using data? So this is essentially techniques that you need for data journalism. Number 1, define your objective. You need to define what your objective is, and you have to know your audience. Who is this intended for? What is the objective of telling the story? Doing so will help you identify specific trends, focus on subsets of data, and categorize information to support a thesis. So for example, if I were to do a story on how there are more and more players in clothing business who are now offering clothes and lifestyle choices to people who are plus size. Now, it may sound like a very frivolous or a trivial story, but it's very important given that there are more clothing choices for people who would not find clothes up until 10 years ago, because you would only have a certain size X, certain medium, extra large, and that's that. So for people who are perhaps on the obese side, or people who have a body type which does not adhere to the clothings that are there, this information can be really crucial. And if that is your target audience, then you have so much data that will come through. Once you start, trying to collate data, you'll have data coming through of brands that have forayed in India, which are adhering or which are catering to plus size customers. You will have money that has flown by the way of FDI. You will have people who've gone out to buy such clothes. You have influencers who are talking about body positivity. So you'll have a whole lot of data that you'll be able to get from the internet or from different sources, and there are sources out there which we will come to in just a while. But the idea therefore is to first identify a trend, right? So I began by identifying a trend in is that years ago did not have many chance to close. Today have a lot of choice in social media influencers, and all of this data can then be molded accordingly. So you may need to tell different stories from the same set of data depending on the audience and their priority. If your story is about plus size people, then you need to identify what kind of data and where all that data needs to come from. But let's say your story is about election trends, and we know Karnataka went to elections yesterday, it polled yesterday, and on Saturday counting will start. So on Saturday you will suddenly see a lot of graphics, bar graphs, pie charts on your TV screen that will tell you who's winning whether constituencies. So a lot of data will come in, but remember, your data analysis for different people will be different. So you need to prioritize your data. So for example, if I'm an electorate, what I may want to know is who's winning in my constituency. But if I'm a politician, what I need to know is by how many votes, in what all castes, in what all regions, did I lose or did I win, or the candidate that I support has won or lost. So you need to tell stories, and different stories can be told using same data set. So you have one data set, but your story will depend on who your audience is. If your audience is the electorate, the data can be used entirely differently. But if your audience is the politicians, the data can be used in a different manner. Similarly, if you have data about clothing, if you have data about consumption of clothes in this country, if you are developing a story for a plus size audience, you will tell a different story. But if you are developing a story for, let's say, somebody who believes in sustainable living, and I'm sure all of you are aware that there is a thrust towards sustainable living. People are no more hoping to buy clothes. Fast fashion has come into criticism. So if I can buy a piece of cloth from H&M and I 2 years later I discard it and it pollutes earth, then my expenditure is going towards pollution of earth, right? So people are becoming increasingly aware of buying from local manufacturer, locally sourced material and local manufacturers, something that is not fast fashion, something that can stay on for a while, can support indigenous people, can support local economies. And young people, specifically in my age group which is little younger than me, is now suddenly getting conscious of their clothing choices. So if you have data about clothing, you can utilize that data to tell a story about plus size clothing and also tell a story.
I lost the audio of Shweta. Is it the same on the other side?
There seems to be some technical glitch.
Okay.
Connect Shweta.
Rakesh sir?
I can connect to Shweta.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, John.
Can you hear me?
Shweta, we lost your audio, Shweta.
Yes, I think you lost my
Okay,
audio.
fine, you're back.
Yeah, again it is coming. Yeah.
Okay, lovely.
And you have to share your screen again. Yeah, it started.
This is fine?
Yeah, it's visible.
Is this okay? Okay. Let me do this. You can see this now?
Yes, perfectly okay now.
Okay, wonderful. So, and what you need to also consider is what your audience already knows about the topic in order to frame data visualization, because you have to develop any data visualization that you are going to make. So be it a line graph or a pie chart around their current understanding of the subject. Let's say it's very complicated data, right? Very complicated data that has just come in. And I'll give you an example of, let's say, Panama Papers, or some data around offshore investment of celebrities and politicians and businessmen in the country, where they are parking their money in a country where they don't have to pay similar taxes, right? So in that case, your audience knows very little about the story. In case of fashion, they may know a lot. In case of clothing, they may already know a lot. In case of election coverage, they may already know, okay, so we are tuning into election coverage. We're going to watch election coverage, read about it in a newspaper, read about it on our phones. So they already know what they're going to get. But in case of very complex stories, and for example, that of Panama Papers or that of your big people, expensive people who have a lot of money, in order to save money, they are parking their money offshore in tax havens, so that they don't have to pay similar taxes as opposed to what they would pay here in India if they were putting that money in bank here in India. In which case, there is nothing that your audience already knows. So you have to really start with the basics. You really have to start with identifying these individuals, showing their photos, talking about how much wealth they have, where have they put in their wealth, how much is in India, how much is abroad. So the idea, therefore, is as media people, as students of media, your students should know about their audience, should already decide what their audience will be, and how much do they already know about a certain topic before it comes to data visualization. Because the current understanding of the subject on a topic is also very important. Certain topics are easy, so therefore everybody knows what they're reading, everybody understands what they're going to get, but certain topics, as I said, can be very, very difficult. And inflation may be one of them. Not everybody knows about inflation. Everybody talks about Mehngai, but not everybody knows data around inflation, right? Similarly, growth in GDP. Everybody talks about, oh, India is growing at a faster pace as compared to other developed economies around the world, but not many will be able to tell you at what pace and what are the reasons India is growing at that pace, right? Is it because of the industrial input? Is it because of growing size of IT industry? Is it because we are able to contain our the macroeconomic environment or the macros in the economy under control? So various factors that go into making GDP and sustained growth. So if you are explaining a complex topic such as a GDP to an average audience, you may also need to break down that data, right? Break down that data to a point where it's easier for consumption. So define your objective and know your audience. Moving on. Identify a compelling narrative. And this is important because good stories have very strong plot lines. Just like movies, when we go back after watching a movie, one of the things we remember and take with us is the plot line, right? How interesting was the plot line? Was it something you've already watched 10 times? Or is it something which is fresh and new and not touched upon? If a story is new, fresh, it has a fresh plot line, it is a better story. It is going to stay long with your audience. Now, you may want to start with a hook. What is a hook? As the word suggests, hooks. A hook is something that hooks your audience, right? Just like you catch a fish with a hook, it's a similar thing. So it's a hook that you always start your story with, a question, a conundrum. Take your audience through a journey that builds momentum and end with arriving at a solution. A typical Bollywood movie, starting with two people who perhaps want to spend their life together. A sudden enemy appears, the couple fight them off, and then there is a happy ending. So a solution. So a typical Bollywood plot line, but make it as interesting and as different as you can. Because if you stick to the plot line, you may not be able to get a lot of audience, because people can already identify what they know. They can already see through your story and say, oh, I already know. With banks. So unclaimed deposits to the tune of 32,000 crores, 32 to 35,000 crores with banks. Now, what are unclaimed deposits? These are deposits where people don't come back to claim the money. Let's say I put some money in the bank and I have disappeared for 10 years and there is no activity in the bank. That money will be declared as unclaimed money by the bank. Now, it's a good story. It tells you a lot, but what it essentially tells you is that if you do not have a nominee, if you have not written about your available family that the money should go to, then that money will go to government and essentially back to RBI. And if I were to tell this story to make this interesting, I had to make it personal. So drawing all that I've read so far in the course of my career and from the knowledge that I've had from other media educators, I decided to start with an individual story, which is what happens to your money if you die? A big question. Why? Because that hooks the audience. What happens to your money if you die? Question mark. Money goes to the RBI, or that money goes to the government, and there is as much as 35,000 crore rupees that is unclaimed, right? So the idea is start with a hook, make it personal, start with a question, a conundrum, take the audience through a journey, build momentum, and end with arriving at a solution. What is a solution? Make sure your spouse knows about your investments. Make sure your family members are your nominees, so that when you pass away, and in an unfortunate case, if you pass away before you are expected to, that money goes to the recipient. It will go to the people who deserve to have that money, your legal heir, your legal claimants, right? So a journey is important. You have to trace a journey for a story. If you can start with a hook, middle, and end, nothing like it, and then incorporate data in middle. The main data-driven narratives are associated with either number one, trends. So trends basically focus on numbers that are rising and falling. So what are numbers that are rising and falling? If you look at trends, a good trend that comes to my mind is rupee versus dollar. Now you must have seen rupee versus dollar, where rupee mostly falling as compared to dollar, but then falling even drastically sometimes, where it crosses 85 rupee mark, or in maybe next 10 years time, if it continues on the same downward trajectory, it will cross to 120, right? Just the other day, one of my colleagues was asking me, what is your assumption in last 10 years? What will be dollar to rupee relationship? And from what I can expect in next 10 years, it would be around 130 to a dollar, which is a lot, which means your currency is weakening with each passing day. And that's a very relatively easy story to tell, because you can really plot it in a line graph or a bar graph, the relationship between rupee and a dollar. And more simplistically, LPG. Everybody uses LPG. And if I were to look at the trend in prices of LPG, I can easily plot a graph, I can easily plot a chart and make it more personal by, let's say, first hooking our audience by getting an example of a certain individual who's living in a tribal hinterland in Jharkhand. About 5 years ago, cannot afford LPG anymore, has to take to unclean fuel, which is burning wood, in order to cook, in order to fend for our family. And that is the person, a person X who was earning 500 rupees was paying perhaps 300, 200 rupees until 10 years ago. And these are just assumptions. I know we were not paying 200, 300 rupees for an LPG cylinder even 5 years ago. But just to give you an example, earning 500 rupees, paying about 200 rupees for an LPG cylinder about 10 years ago is currently paying 1,000 rupees, does not have enough money. If I can plot a graph with this said person X and X's example, then that becomes an interesting hook, because I have made a story personal. So you find a trend, and trend stories focus on how numbers will rise and fall. A flattening trend can also reflect key insights. A flat trend also means no momentum, means it has remained same. Let's see if there is a flat trend in LPG prices or in petrol or diesel prices. Petrol diesel prices have remained same over the course of last 5 to 7 years, but that's not the case, as we all know. Anyway, comparison. A comparison is when you compare two data sets and how they have changed over time. That's another way of telling a story through comparison. You compare prices in 1990 compared to prices in 2023, and it'll give you an interesting data set. statistical relationship, which is by exploring the correlation between sets of data, you can actually predict how one factor may impact another. Quick example, weather patterns. Weather patterns and crop damage. If you can talk about weather patterns statistically, that in, let's say, 2013, about 10 years ago, there were 5 instances of unseasonal rainfall in Maharashtra. And that resulted in 1,200 farmers committing suicide. Compare that data statistically to 2023, where entire month of May, up until now, we've seen rainfall from at least, 25th of April up until 5th of May, 6th of May, we've seen rainfall, as a result of which more crop damage and more people committing suicide. So statistical relationship between point X and point Y, again, very important correlation, but will also help you tell a data story, a story of how, farmers in this country continue to suffer. Some of this can be helped. Some of this can never be helped. So often climate crisis is something that can only be helped on a longer term, in a long run. In the short run, as it happens, it has an instant impact on a person's ability to pay back debt and to sustain their livelihood. And this time around, unfortunately, and this is an example I thought it is important to give, because this time around, unseasonal rainfall has resulted in a lot of crop damage in UP, in parts of MP, in parts of Western India, specifically, and Marathwada region of Maharashtra, because Marathwada has suffered, and all these areas are typically areas that used to get rainfall at a fixed time, and as a result of which the crop has also taken a lot of hit and a lot of damage. So far, so good. Should we move on? After this slide, I was hoping to give a quick, not an assignment, but an example. I think we can all take 5 minutes and start responding actively and start talking to one another. I think make it a little more interactive. Now, key elements of analysis storytelling. Analysis storytelling is equivalent to data storytelling, because in case of data, you're analyzing whatever facts and information is out there. Just like any other story, you have a plot, you have the setting, you have the characters, you have the end. Plot, setting, characters, end, right? As I said, a typical movie. A plot. This involves questions you're going to address. How you plan to answer them, how you're going to help the audience arrive at a conclusion. Your data visualization should take your audience from point A to point B in the most efficient and effective way possible. That is the plot. What is going to be a plot? Is your plot going to be around how difficult it is for people to afford clean fuel because LPG is getting expensive? Is that going to be a plot? Then your data should take people from point A to point B using that plot, right? Or is your plot around Mehengai? Or more glaring example, rich getting richer, poor getting poorer in the country, right? 99% of the people hoarding, 99% of the people have 1% of the wealth. 1% of the people in this country have 99% of the wealth, which is rich getting very, very, very rich and poor getting very, very, very poor. If that is your plot, your data should take people from point A to point B and supplement their understanding. We all know rich are getting richer, but if you can get us data and setting and characters and develop a story in a way that effectively tells us how rich are getting richer and how poor people are being affected, then nothing like it. Moving on to the setting. It is the context that will impact your audience and interpret that data. Examples include historical data, current processes, industry benchmarks. So what is going to be your setting? Is your setting going to be around historically how India has fared? Maybe not very interesting. Not very interesting if you tell me 1960 में इतने लोग गरीब थे, 2023 में इतने लोग गरीब हैं. I'm not bothered, right? But you can tell me that my ability to earn at the moment remains same, whereas someone who's rich because their parents are rich, because they come from a family of wealth, They come from a history of wealth, is likely to earn 10 times more than me in the next 10 years. Now that interests me. Why? Because it tells me how my legacy, how the richness of my or of my parents is going to impact my future. So something that is current. So in this case, maybe a current process, a current problem, and then industry benchmarks. What is the benchmark overall as to the data pertaining to rich and poor, right? In different countries around us, in developing countries specifically. Meeting your audience where they are at helps position your data. If you meet me where I am at a juncture in life. If your audience, let's say, is in the age bracket of 25 years to 40, and it's very important again to identify the age of your audience. If you're 25 to 50 years old, their expectations of life is going to be different. Right? Specifically, if they're 25 to 35-year-old, they are just getting into the industry. They are just progressing in the career. They may not have started a family. They may not be looking for a partner. They, in most case scenarios, may just have started a family at the age of 35. So their expectations of life are going to be different. Let's say a 45 to 55-year-old, because they are looking for stability. They are looking where to put their children to school. They are looking at what's their future going to be like after their retirement. How much are they going to save? How rich are they going to be? Am I getting 2 crore rupees at my retirement? Am I going to save enough to get 10 crore rupees as corpus? So my expectations from life also depends on my age bracket, right? So that setting is also important. You realize that you need to position your data and insights based on your audience. You meet your audience where they are. The audience will not come to you. You go and meet them where they are in their lives, right? And that is likely to have highest impact if you're able to meet them at their juncture in life. You've got to identify them and meet them at what juncture they are. The characters. Just like any story, the audience you are going to address will determine the story. What is your audience? The story should adopt right tone, address the audience's priorities, explain the insights, and help them achieve their goals. So if your story is about Gen Z, and I'm hoping your stories are going to be about Gen Zs when you are going back and teaching your students. Most of my students, those who are undergraduate students, are less than 20 years old. And postgraduate students are more than 20 years old. So people who are less than 20 years old, their expectations of life, their lingos, the way they talk to one another, their maturity level is very different from students. And I think all of us struggle that way because when you're teaching bachelor student, you have to make it even more interesting. You have to really dumb it down. You have to really make them understand in their language, the way they understand it. Because if you're making it complicated, if you're making it difficult for them, they're not going to pay attention to you. And as teachers, I think that's our constant struggle to get our students to listen to us without us boring them to death or without they sleeping while we're speaking. So the idea is you meet them where they are, right? You will determine the characters. If you have a younger character, remember, if you have a character in your audience who is 20 years old, he or she will appeal to the audience that is in that age bracket between 15 to 25. If you have a character which is 50-year-old trying to appeal to a 20-year-old, it's not going to happen, right? So your characters will therefore determine the audience that you're trying to address. The story should adopt the right tone. If they're speaking in, let's say, a 50-year-old person speaking in a very mature tone, in a very mature voice, trying to address a gathering of intellectuals, then young people are unlikely to listen or pay attention. Now, we can't change them, so we might as well adapt. Decide what tone, what priorities, and how much knowledge and information your audience already has. If they are young people, they are expected to have very little knowledge, information. So your graphs, your stories should be simpler. If they are relatively older people, then it can be different because they already know what they're doing. They already know what they're saying. I'll give you a classic example of EPFO. Employee Provident Fund Organization. Now, EPFO is giving a higher pension and EPFO is giving a lower pension. Now, higher pension and lower pension has no impact on undergraduate students at all, unless there may be one or two who is very active and really understands these concepts. Largely, 18, 20-year-old people do not care about pensions, right? So you know your story is going to be for mature audience. So the characters can also be mature. But if you are telling a story on fashion, you know your characters have to be younger because your audience is young. And finally, and let me talk about end, you reach a conclusion that's congruent with the topic or challenges you set out to address. So the end should be a conclusion. What exactly are you hoping to discuss? What exactly are you hoping to address? It could be a summary of what the audience has learned from the data story, how they can achieve results, what they can do differently in future to change the outcome. So for example, going back to our story about rich getting richer, poor getting poorer, if my end suggests that if I work very, very hard between the age bracket of 20 to 35, I will be as rich as a person whose father was a billionaire, then that should be the end of your story, right? Telling your audience that, look, if you are to continuously and in a sustained fashion work hard for 15 years, you will be able to bridge that generational wealth. Then in that case, that is the idea, that is the conclusion of the story. Bridge the generational wealth by working hard for 15 years. If you, for example, everybody in all of our cases, in fact, my father used to often say, abhi padhoge तो बाद में कम पढ़ना पड़ेगा, बाद में कम मेहनत करनी पड़ेगी, अभी करोगे तो बाद में कम करना पड़ेगा, वरना अभी नहीं करोगे तो जिंदगी भर करना पड़ेगा. Although it doesn't really apply because मेहनत तो जिंदगी भर करनी होती, but I think what he was arriving at is that if you work hard enough in a certain age bracket, you can bridge the differences that exist in society. You can bridge the wealth, the generational gap. Somebody who can afford an iPhone and you can only afford perhaps a Xiaomi, then you can bridge that if you keep working hard and hard and hard and achieve your goals in the next 15 years, right? So your conclusion should be a summary of what data will say and what the learning has been through interpretation of data. Are we good? Am I even audible or am I speaking to myself?
No, you are properly audible.
Yes, you are audible, ma'am.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you. So I at this point, and we've read about key elements of storytelling, the plot, the setting, the characters, the end. I am hoping that we can do a short 3 to 5 minutes on telling a story about cryptocurrency, and I think we did talk about cryptocurrency using all these elements, the key elements. And if you can take 2 to 3 minutes and we can arrive at a plot, the setting, the characters, and the end, then I think that will be lovely. And then we'll talk about how we can plot data in each of these characters. Right, so we can, I think it's an open floor, and we can discuss as to how we can utilize each of these elements, the key elements, to tell a better story on cryptocurrencies in India or in at large in general. Anybody who'd like to go first? We could just talk to each other. Anyone?
Dear participants, please ask questions, or you can also write in the chat box.
Anybody? Okay, I can start. And then maybe all of you can also start coming in. I feel, and this is something I haven't done, so I'm also going to just throwing my raw thoughts out there and speak as I'm thinking. The plot that I'm trying to address here is the rise and fall of cryptocurrency and how volatile the market is. I'm hoping that through this data analysis or whatever I present, my students, or rather my audience, would know whether to invest in crypto or not to invest in crypto, because let's not forget it's unregulated in India. There is not much regulation around cryptocurrencies. And then as I said, I'm speaking my mind right now, so I haven't thought this through, but again, I wanted to make this interactive. What I want my audience to arrive at is the fact, and point A would be whether to invest in crypto or not, and arrive at a point B, which is you should only in crypto if you have enough risk appetite, right? Like you have enough money, crashes off, the crypto tanks and you lose that money, then that does not affect your financial stability, right? So because there are a lot of young people now investing in crypto, 18 years old, 20 years old, 25 years old. I have come across a lot of young people who are investing in crypto. So for me, that is the plot. Anybody else?
For me, the plot would be, what is the need of the crypto?
That's interesting. Need for crypto.
And
Who's
why
that?
crypto has arrived?
Okay. Sorry.
And why the younger people are following this trend?
Why crypto? Okay. What's your name, sir?
Vinu.
Vinu. Okay. Okay, that's interesting. So you want to go to the basics on why younger people are going for cryptos and need for crypto.
Right.
Okay. Anybody else? What your plot would be around crypto? If you are to do a story and your students are to do a story.
Ma'am, we can introduce it to our students in a way that by asking a question that whether they deal in digital currency or not. Then we can introduce it to them. We can start it this way to make the class more interactive. Like whether they invest in digital currency or not, or they know about what digital currency is all about.
Okay, that's an important question because you need to know whether your audience invests in cryptocurrency or not. But the hypothesis here being that they do.
You don't have to. You can go. That's okay. You can always take a bus. It's fine. Don't need the.
I think someone's speaking.
I request participants to please mute your microphone. There's one question we are receiving in the chat box as well. That is from Mr. Pankaj Dhiman. Do we need any regulations in India?
Absolutely. I think that's a very important. Thanks, Pankaj. It's a very important question. Do we need regulations? Absolutely. That has to be a part of your plot, whether we need regulations or not. If you have to write and you have to cater to your audience by asking, why are they investing, right? What is the need for investment? What is the government doing? So if you're doing a story on crypto, your plot has to have all of that. Let's go to the setting, and setting here would be the context. Now, should you be including historical data, current data? I think in this case, all of it. Current data around trends in crypto, the fact that government has continuously again and again said that we will regulate crypto, we will make sure crypto is regulated. Also, RBI declared is as an untenable currency. So you can't use crypto to make, it's not legal tender, right? So you can't say, I'll give you crypto, can you give me groceries? That will never happen. But it does happen in many countries, right? That is interesting. It does happen in a lot of countries around the world and a lot of small places where crypto is now used as...
Even Tesla is accepting cryptocurrency.
Absolutely. So it's now in a lot of places where they're using crypto as a legal tender. In this case, we only have our banknotes as legal tender. We don't have cryptos in this country. We do not recognize crypto. So I think for me, the setting would also be around the world when there is so much acceptance. Would banning in India make a difference? Because people, what they're doing is they are actually investing in international exchanges. So young people are now going to international crypto exchanges and investing money and losing money. So can banning something prevent it from happening? Right? If you ban something, can you prevent it? No. Can you delay it? No. People will do it.
It is only regulated, cannot be prevented.
Right. So regulator in this case perhaps need to do better. I think in this case, perhaps regulator need to step in and come up with regulations as opposed to saying that we're going to ban it. Moving on, character. Who do you think will be your character? In a crypto story, who do you think will be your character?
Start with plotting with the story, buying a what do you call the Tesla with the crypto.
I would start with a person, because the idea is to make it more human. And I would start with a person who either uses crypto actively or has lost a lot of money in crypto. Because a young investor, I agree with Dr. Jolly, maybe a young investor, maybe who's made money in crypto, right? They would be a good character to tell this story. That someone who says that, look, I'm 25 years old. I was 9 years ago when I was 16. I invested my pocket money in crypto, about 2,000 rupees, 3,000 rupees. Today it's 25, 30,000 rupees, right? Or even more than that. I think that would be a good character. And what sort of legal hurdles that person had to face in the interim, about a couple of months ago, because RBI was cracking down on cryptocurrencies, it became very, very difficult to sell crypto. It became very difficult to get your money. So if you had the money, you had it in an exchange, and the exchange had the money, but you did not have anything. So you can say on paper, look, I have so much money, but if you can't transact with that money, then it means nothing. So I think that could be an interesting character for me. Who else would be a good character? Anybody? Okay. Anyway, I think let's stick to the fact that we get a young...
One person has written that, Pankaj Dhimane has written, the person doing crypto business.
Okay. A person who's in the business of crypto could be a good character as well. So a young person who trades in crypto, then a person who is in business of selling crypto, maybe a crypto exchange owner would be a good character, right? So they would tell you legally how difficult it has become to sustain in this business, especially after the government has again and again said that, you know, we don't accept existence of crypto, and one should not trade in crypto. So because there is a negative sentiment around it, a person who's a young founder of a crypto exchange in India can also perhaps talk about how difficult it has become to sustain operations. Finally, in the end, and this is where it gets important, what message do you want to send out to your audience? Right? Messages are black or white. So in this case, what message would you like to send out to your audience? And everybody can differ on this. On crypto, what should be the conclusion on crypto? How do you see the crypto story concluding? Again, I'm just going to speak my mind, and
okay. The participant has mentioned awareness about crypto frauds.
That is wonderful. I think that's a good end to a story. Awareness around crypto frauds, awareness around how much you can lose if you continue to put money, right? If
Dr. Jolly has mentioned it can be pros and cons.
Pros and cons, absolutely. That's more balanced way of ending this story. Good and the bad.
Legal hurdles
right?
around
And
cryptocurrency and acceptability on a uniform platform across all the world.
Okay, so legal hurdles, acceptability, pros and cons. I quite like the idea of pros and cons, because then you're leaving it more open-ended, and you can include all the legal hurdles. I agree with Sir there, that we write all the pros and cons, and we also compare our data sets on the good things that you can get, the bad things that can happen to you. You end up winning, you end up losing. So do invest at your own cost, at your own peril.
Yes,
or
invest at your own risk.
Absolutely. So invest at your own risk if you want to do it. So I think those would be the key elements for me. Okay, let's move on. Now, this is important because I also want to show this to you through different graphs. So now that you know what your plot is going to be, you're going to use one of these things to tell the data story. So it's going to be either text, line chart, bar graph, table, or map. There are a lot more ways of doing it, but these are the easiest ways of doing it. Text, line chart, bar graph, table, and map. Let's go through them one after the other. Text. When working with a small data set, you can use text to bring focus to the main issue succinctly without ambiguity. So if I were to just simply talk about how many people have invested in cryptos in India so far and how much money they have lost, I can use this in a text form. I don't have to do a lot about it. So I can use an infographic. What is an infographic? A nice piece of template that has information graphically made, right? Interestingly made, right? I think we all know. You want to give me an example of infographic? Because I will show what a line chart, bar graph, table looks like. Table, I think we all know, but a map, essentially. Infographic, we've all shown to our students at some point or the other, where an information is presented in a text form, but it's rather done in a more beautiful manner so as to make it more consumable and make it easier to understand. So your audience should therefore be able to understand what you're trying to say in a rather succinct manner. You don't have to use a lot of graphs, a lot of data, because information is small, right? Shifting focus to line chart now, and let's take a quick example here. Okay, so this is a line chart. Can everybody see this? This is visible, right? Okay, so if I were to say, and this is India's above target inflation. So if I were to say and tell my audience that महंगाई बढ़ रही है या महंगाई घट रही है, I can always plot it in a line, right? A line that will go from point A to point B, and then the ups and the downs will whether we are within the target range or not within the target range. But this is interesting because this also helps you understand where we were on the graph about a couple of years ago as opposed to where we are now. So as of September, we were at 3.9. Inflation rate was 3.99. September 2019, then the pandemic hit. Then it all went for a toss. Some months it was low, some months it was high. As of March 2022, inflation reached 6.95%. Right? So this is a line graph. So essentially, what does a line graph do? Okay, I'm going to struggling a little bit with this. Okay. Okay, what does a line chart do? It allows you to show changes in continuous data over a period of time. So the same data is changing over a period of time. A line chart is an effective way to illustrate a trend and a linear progression. A linear progression because it's a progression in a line. It's a linear progression. It is not a multi-level progression. You're not seeing a multiple data sets being compared to one another. You're just seeing one data set on a continuous timeline. Right? So linear progression is one data set on a continuous timeline, and you're able to plot when the data shows a rise and then the data shows a down. So that's a line chart for you. Moving on to a bar chart. What is a bar chart? This is a bar chart. Now this is bar, which tells you the FDI that has come in, and this is in million of euros. So millions of euros, 5.7 million euros, 10.15, 12.16, 10.22. 1996, 1997, it was 31.36. Today, it's a lot more than that. But essentially in this bar, because you can see, measure the bars amongst one another, and you can see sudden bar spike here. And after that, it only goes up. So a bar chart is one used methods for visual storytelling, because different types of bar charts, they can be vertical. In this case, this was vertical. It can be horizontal. They can be stacked with one another, can be used to suit the nature of your data and illustrate your idea better. If I want to say that FDI inflow in this country has increased dramatically since the 1990s. There's no better way of doing it than a bar graph, a bar chart or a bar graph, because the bars can be measured one against the other, right? Moving on to a table, I think we all know what a table is. Useful for displaying numbers in categories simultaneously. It allows audience to take in multiple levels of information at glance. So if I were to make a table of inflation, I can do that by showing year and the number. I can use any data in a table, right? But because there are multiple levels, you cannot use a line chart to do it. A line chart is only used for linear storytelling. A bar graph can only be used for when multiple bars are compared. And let's say if I were to compare FDI with and FDI, remember, is the money that is coming into the country. So if I were to compare FDI with industrial output, I can show two bars which are stacked against one another. And then in the same year, which is in the next year, FDI against in-house growth or industrial output in this country. So that way I will be able to compare year on year as to what the FDI was, what in the industrial output was in that year opposed to next year. So bar charts can also be used for more than one data sets. The line chart can only be used for a linear progression of data. Table can be used for multiple categories of data. And then finally, map. A map shows data spatially to illustrate concepts across trends, such as geographical regions, a location that impacts the outcome. In most cases, maps are used for showing disaster, weather patterns. It can be used for also, perhaps crime data, because you are trying to map geographically how trends are differing. And here's an example of a map. This is the maximum temperature, the reddest, of course, being that it's very, very hot, and relatively greener means cooler, yellow means moderate. So in this case, it is a heat map, but you can use this for, as I said, crime data. You can use this for forest coverage. You can use this for disaster possibility in an area. Let's say an earthquake, how prone is a region to earthquake, depending upon the extent of the color that you use, right? So this is what a map looks like. So far, so good. So we're going to move on. And I'm just nearing towards the end of this because I know I don't have much time. So using the right data visualization, there are multiple free tools that you can use. G Suite, Microsoft Power BI, Leaflet, Tableau, Data Wrapper. Most commonly used is Data Wrapper. My students always use Data Wrapper because they can, and in fact, many leading publications here as well, we use Data Wrapper, relatively easy to use and can easily take in your data, give you the output that you like. Open Refine, these are some of the right visualization tools. I'll repeat: G Suite, Microsoft Power BI, Leaflet, Tableau, Data, and Open Refine. You can use these tools. Most of them are relatively free to a certain extent. And then finally, remember to follow best visual design practices. That is, regardless of the visualization method that you are choosing, you're choosing a bar graph or you're choosing a line graph. The key is effective storytelling. And effective storytelling is only possible through simplicity and clarity. No matter what you do, if you are telling story that is simple and making it clearer, as opposed to putting too much data, right? If you pepper too much data, if you pepper too much subclauses, subsets, that makes it difficult. And that does not help you as a journalist or a teacher of journalism, wherein your idea is that message should be conveyed in a manner that is easy to grasp, right? Effective communication is only possible when your data storytelling is simple and clear. So take off everything that complicates the process. You should help your audience achieve maximum understanding at a glance by reducing friction that is involved in reading and interpreting the graphic elements. So if I show you this, then I don't think I have to say a lot. I think every lay person out there understands that, oh, FDI is increasing in the country, right? It is that simple. I look at 1992, I look at 1997, and I can simplistically say, okay, looks like we're doing well because more money is coming in the country. Similarly, if I look at this, I can say for a fact that looks like Rajasthan and parts of Gujarat are really susceptible to heat. They are heating up. Come July, they will perhaps cool down, but in May, they're having a very tough time. People living in these regions in central part of India are having very tough time. So I just have to glance at it. I don't have to read a lot. So if I don't have to read a lot and my understanding of a certain data set is made easy by just looking at it, then that's a job well done. Right? And use white space strategically to guide readers' attention. In this case, the white space is maximum temperature in May. In this case, the white space is FDI. In this, India's inflation rate 6.95%. So you're using the white spaces, the blank spaces effectively to guide readers' attention and eliminate visual elements that do not add value to the story. It's easy. And one of my editors used to tell me this, and I've taken this away as a part of my learning too, that it's easy to think everything is important, and it's very difficult to cross out everything and just make it very raw. 2 lines that sum it up. It's very easy to literally put together large data sets because you think everything is so important. This element is also important. That element is also important. But a good journalist knows how to get rid of everything and just let a single image do the talking. Because as they say, visual is better than text, and audio visual is better than both combined. So if you are able to tell an effective visual story through minimum use of letters, maximum use of white spaces, strategically eliminating every data set that does not add value, using bold colors, highlighting central data to your thesis. If let's say in crypto, I just want to tell young people, don't invest in crypto, you will lose money. Then my data on losing money, how much people have lost money, how much people have suffered because of crypto volatility would be central to that thesis. If I have to tell the government, and I have to tell my people that, oh, look, government is taking a lot of money, and regardless of which government that is, government on government since the past 20 years have made a lot of money on the back of taxpayers. Like a person like me who pays taxes has only been paying more and more and more taxes for the last so many years. Then it's very easy for me to tell that story by showing how tax rates have changed and have continuously gone up, as opposed to the tax net, which is still very small, right? Very small. Less than 6 crore people pay taxes in this country. So if I know what my thesis is going to be, I can use the data accordingly and bold out the data accordingly. That supplements what I'm trying to convey to my audience. And I think that's all the time I have. Thank you very much. This is my email ID. This is my account details to ask those who want to reach out to me. I am active on all these platforms, and if you have any questions that I can answer or any interaction that we can have after this, I will be available on that email. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shweta. Can you also mention how to port the data, for an example, from this source too?
Sorry, ma'am, can you come again?
Yeah, we have, there is a big data, how to port that data. Can you have a demo on that?
I can send a demo on that, okay. How to import the data. I remember, right. I think I've done that in one of the classes.
Yeah,
I have done it in one of the classes. So I have the video for that. I can share that data and I can share that clip.
All right.
Both data and large data sets.
Yeah.
Okay. Ma'am, we have one more question in the chat box. That is in context of print journalism, how data visualization can help deal with strict deadlines and a space crunch.
I think more than TV, print is where data is used a lot, because with print journalists, there is enough space to graphically represent data. So be it data on crime rate, to be it data on politics, to be it data on economy. a lot of this is effectively utilized in the print space, because I come from TV. We only have limited time and space. We can only show data alongside an anchor or alongside an expert. But print has so much space that you can have large graphics, pie charts, bar graphs. And if you pick the paper up today, you will see that print publication is effectively using their space, as opposed to TV, where there is limited use of data, and whatever data is used is often only used by business journalists. On other medium, I don't think it's a possibility. On radio, you can't do data visualization. So, but it only appears on page one stories. Not really. I mean, if you look at the Economic Times today, I don't have a copy with me, but if you look at the Economic Times today, throughout the pages, you'll be able to see charts and graphs. In context of print, it becomes all the more important because there is just so much information out there that an average person only ends up glancing through headlines and graphs, right? And nobody is going to read those 8-column inches. And so therefore, if you want to effectively communicate something, the only way to do it is perhaps have a big chart out there that will tell your story in a short, succinct manner. I hope that answers your question.
Hey, Shweta, I have a question. Can I go ahead?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think one of the USPs of data journalism is that it put things in right perspective, rather than normal stories, which through a person or through a medium try to blow things out of proportion. So I will give you an example. For example, you gave this example of unclaimed deposit, right? 35,000 crore. So a normal story would tell you that this is a huge deal, 35,000 crore. But if you put this in right perspective, so the India's total deposit is somewhere 150 lakh crore, and 35,000 crore is maybe 0.25% of India's total deposit. So basically, a normal story would tell you that this is something big, but a data story would tell you that this is not so big. And by putting it in a perspective, similarly, even if you, for example, you gave this rich getting richer and poor getting poorer. So a normal story would tell you that rich are getting richer and poor are getting poorer, but a data story would and tell you that rich are getting richer, but poor are also getting richer comparatively, at least for where they were. So basically, the important difference between a data story and a normal story is that a data story tries to put things in perspective. So aren't we drawing wrong lessons here from data stories?
Sorry, Amit, what wrong lessons?
Wrong lessons in the sense you were telling that data stories should also be told through a person or by keeping a person or individual in perspective. So in fact, I would argue that that is not a data story at all, because that doesn't put the whole data, the whole thing in perspective. While a data story would tell you the whole story, basically on the right context and right parameters. A normal story doesn't put things on right parameters, while data story tries to put things in. For example, the deposit story that I told you, the total deposited 150 lakh crore, so 35,000 crore doesn't matter to that scale. It's 0.225% of total deposit. So why should we even concerned about that?
Let me correct you there. No, actually, let me correct you there. It does matter. It does matter to a point. That finance minister came on record 3 days ago saying that we will do something to make this better. We will initiate special drives. We will have a separate portal where people who have these deposits that are unclaimed can go and find out if it belongs to one of their family members. So no, sir, I disagree with you very respectfully. I think this is a huge number. And I agree with you when you compare it to if there is more than 1,50,000 crore in deposit, 35,000 is not a big deal. I agree with you, but it is substantial. And so you can't get away with saying it is point some percent, so let's forget about this. No, because if your story is about unclaimed deposit, you're not asking people to forget about this unclaimed deposit, you're drawing attention to this unclaimed deposit. A problem does not, and this is my, I'm going to say this, my fundamental appeal is that no problem goes away unless you draw attention to that problem. And no problem is too small, sir. 35,000 crore is not a small amount. It was 48,000 crore last year. It is 35,000. So if you want to give a perspective, and which I did give a perspective, that it has become better than last year, which means people are getting more and more aware, it is still a big problem, right? So I agree with you 100%. The idea of data storytelling is to also draw reference from a large set of data and compare that data, but it is not to question the thesis of your story. The entire reason for doing this story was to make people more aware, is to ensure that, more and more people, every time you fill a bank account form, kindly write your nominee. Every time you are investing in mutual fund, make sure you are writing details of your father, your mother, spouse, oh, I have investments, because often in a small men in financial matters, they don't end up telling the woman, and once unfortunate demise of the spouse happens, the woman is left in the lurch. She does not know where all the money is being saved. So the entire thesis, the entire problem is the fact that 35,000 crore is a large amount. It may be very less and insubstantial if you compare it to a large number of money that is being put in the banks, but it is still significant. So it is not going to deride the fact that, oh, it's not a big deal, 35,000 crore to bahut chota hai rehne do. Nahi. It may be small when compared to the large amount of investment, but it is still substantial, sir. I hope we agree on that at least.
No, so see, my basic argument is that by their sheer nature, the normal stories try to blow things out of proportion. That is where data storage step in, because they put things in perspective. So that is the main difference between normal storage and data storage, right? That data story tries to put things in perspective, while normal stories blow things out of proportion just to draw attention, which is a good thing in its own respect. But that doesn't fill gap of putting things in perspective, and that is where the data stories step in, right?
Right. I agree, sir, 10%. You put things in perspective. And hence, if you go back, because I've done this yesterday, I will also share my YouTube link here, because I did this story yesterday. I did mention that it was 48,000 crore, which was the perspective that I was trying to give to my audience, that it was more last year, it's less this year, hopefully it will be lesser next year. And I agree with you, 10%. There has to be perspective, not a linear storytelling. It's not storytelling that only talk and as you said, it should not inflate a problem. It should give historical perspective on an issue. So you should therefore also mention that the problem is being tamed. It's getting better. Right, I agree, and which is what I did. But at the same time, to say that it is inconsequential, I think I don't think that then helps you with any story. Then I don't know what the story is here, because for me, the money is consequential. It is an important sum. So no money is inconsequential. And I'll just quickly also elaborate on your other example of rich getting richer and poor getting poorer. Historically, and again, on the basis of data, as a country, we have been extremely divided and unequal in wealth and resources. And unfortunately, and I don't have data in hand, so I can't read that out right now, but unfortunately, that has remained the case. So even if you draw, examples of historical perspective, you will see that we have not been able to do better at this problem. I agree with you that you have to give historical perspective. And if I will take the liberty of going back through one of the slides that I used to say that historical data is important. The setting is very important. Examples may include historical data, current processes, and industry benchmarks, because historical data will help you put things in perspective. Absolutely, sir.
Okay, thanks. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other participant who would like to ask question? I would like to make one announcement in between. Dr. Jolly Jose has shared web resources to explore large data sets. There are a few links mentioned in the chat box, so you can copy these links before we end this particular meeting. Any other participant who would like to ask question to Ms. Shweta Kothari?
Thank you so much, Sunita. Appreciate the feedback. If there is any feedback, please let me know. I think we can always make this better. I quite like the fact that we can agree and then we can disagree and then we can discuss. I think that is what academia allows you to do, as opposed to where I am in my everyday business. There is not much room for disagreement and people often end up fighting with one another. But academia is a wonderful place where we can all agree, disagree, and arrive at a better solution to a problem.
Definitely, ma'am. We will share all the feedbacks. Dr. Suneet Mukherjee sir has shared the feedback. Thanks for the wonderful session. So with this, I would like to officially conclude this session. Storytelling is definitely a very integral part of journalism. You spoke about the plot, the setting, the character, and the end, and how the examples which you have shared with us will definitely help us, providing it to our students. And choosing the right data visualization methods is definitely very important. So to conclude, I can say that very well said by you, simple and clear data storytelling can ensure effective communication, and concise communication is definitely the key. So thank you so much for this wonderful session and enlightening us. It is always delightful to listen to you, as I have also attended some of your session in my previous organization. So it is always very delightful experience. Now I would like to call Dr. Jolly Jose, ma'am, to formally give you a word of thanks from Amity School of Communications behalf.
Good afternoon. And indeed, it was a very, very wonderful session. And we look forward that some of us definitely incorporate data journalism part of our curriculum, and also as a main paper that is the need of the hour. And we have touched upon this area. We had 3 sessions. And thank you, Shweta, for this specific area which you have focused, how to construct the story, how to tell a story on this. So on behalf of Amity School of Communication and Amity University, Noida, the founder president, our honorable vice chancellor, and the team of consortium and the organizing committee, I extend our deepest gratitude for taking out your time and collaborating and make it this faculty development program a very, very meaningful one. Thank you so much. We look forward for you for the further sessions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you everyone for having me. It's an absolute pleasure. I don't get to have a lot of chances where I can talk to journalism faculty members from different colleges. So it is a great privilege for me to be able to interact with so many eminent people at the same time. I am very keen on any feedback that you have for me. I'm very keen to interact with whoever is open to interaction and learning. I see myself as a journalist, working journalist and an academic. Unlike most of you, I don't have a PhD, but I'm learning, and I'm learning from all of you how to be a better teacher. And I am very fortunate to get a chance to interact with you all. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. Dear participants, we would take half an hour break and we will be back for our 10th session of day 4. So I request you to kindly join back in half an hour. Dr. Jolly, can we start by 1:40?
We are assuming at 2, isn't it?
At 2, okay. Definitely. So we will resume at 2. Thank you very much for your participation with us as of now. So we will resume after lunch at 2.
Okay, started. Please start.
Good afternoon, everyone. With the blessings of our founder president, Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan sir, our chancellor, Dr. Atul Chauhan sir, our vice chancellor ma'am, Dr. Balvinder Shukla, our mentor, Professor Dr. Manohar Sajnani sir, and our advisor, Colonel Dagan sir, and consortium members, I would like to take the pleasure of inviting you all in the 10th session of day 4 of Faculty Development Program. This session is based on audio storytelling and podcasting. I would like to invite our guest of the session, RJ Veera and Ms. Shikha Shukla. RJ Veera has been in the audio industry for more than 30 years. She has been a Limca Book of Record holder as the longest serving morning jockey. She has been former programming head of Radio City, Lucknow. In 2015, she has started her career by owning Radio Academy training aspirants as radio professionals. Her students are placed at all the leading radio channels like Mirchi, Red, Fever, Radio City. In 2021, she launched an internet radio station, Radio Modern. She is now heading the same. RJ Veera is also a YouTuber and a podcaster on Spotify, Amazon Music, and Air Voice. Besides, she has also done many voiceover projects for commercials, audiobooks, and documentaries. Our second guest of the session is Ms. Shikha Shukla. She is a community radio practitioner and broadcaster and has spent more than a decade in radio broadcasting. She has done more than 15 community welfare projects with eminent bodies like UNICEF, UNESCO, Ministry of Family and Health Welfare, BBC, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. She is also Jargon New Media podcaster and does storytelling and fiction podcasting. She has served as former Vice President, Women's India Chamber of Commerce, Delhi Design Council, and she's also co-founder of Connect to Health Youth Social Welfare Group. And I take the pleasure that by saying that Ms. Shikha is also associated with Amity Radio. So I formally welcome both of our guests for the session. We can start the session, ma'am. Thank you. Shikha, ma'am, you are not audible.
Hi, this is Veera here. Can you hear me?
Good afternoon, ma'am. You are audible. Thank you.
Okay. Great.
Veera, thank you so much joining.
Yeah.
Now the session is in your hand. Yeah.
Okay, fine. So I guess this the whole session is about podcasting, right? So I was just, I wanted to begin the session with telling everyone that podcasting is the, the revamped form of, audio industry, basically, or you can say radio. And it is very much in fashion these days, and it is here to stay. For the simple reason that radio, first of all, was a connecting medium. Now, podcasting is again a very intimate medium to connect with people. Over here, you have a large variety. See, when you are in radio, you have you have to control your content. But over here, podcasting is very, very, open area. You can talk about anything under the sun.
Veeraji, we lost your voice. We cannot hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yeah.
So podcasting is very amazing, and I am also experimenting with it because, after being in radio for more than almost 25 years, I have switched on to podcasting. And the kids today need to understand that why is it so important? Number one, podcasting gives you the freedom of expression. Like, you don't have to limit yourself. There are so many topics, there's so many things you can talk about. Number one, and you can explore your own self also. Like, there is storytelling, there is, journaling, there is travelogue, and there is, like,
Ma'am, you are not audible. We are not able to hear
audio
anything.
quality. Can you hear, or am
Yes,
I audible?
now it is fine.
Okay, okay. The light is switched over, I guess. The thing is, with the podcasting coming more and more in fashion, one thing that we need to understand is that the competition is also increased, because now it has become very accessible to everyone. Podcasting, because of podcasting, audio is becoming very accessible. So there are so many people who have talent and who can convey their thoughts and feelings through podcasting. So, in order to stand out in your podcasts, you have to be different. You have to maintain your quality, and you have to be at par technically also. So, apart from, being a creative person, a podcaster needs to be technically also very, very informative, technically also very, very conversant with the medium. Number two. The third thing is, through podcasting, you can be heard anywhere in the world. Now, this is something very, very, very encouraging, because when we were in audio industry, you can say the radio, it has a limited, zone. FMs have a limited zone. Community radio has a limited zone. But when you come to podcasting, you can be heard anywhere in the world. Again, that increases your responsibility. So when you are sharing
Ma'am, again, we are not able to hear anything.
yeah.
It is back. Thank you.
It's back. Okay. The light is playing with us right now. Anyway, again, so coming to content first, because anything can be communicated through content only. But because podcasting has a very broad base, for that you need to be very, very, clear about your content. You have to be very, you have to be very consistent with your scripting work, and you have to be very connective also in the way, because you are reaching out to so many people over there, and everyone has a different language. So you have to find one language which can connect.
Oh.
How do you package? Now that's where your technicality also comes in action. The best part is now, I can see the youngsters today, or the present generation is very much conversant with the technicality, so that's not a problem. And people are very, very much experimenting with the help of Insta. They already know how to create reels. With YouTube, they know how to create content. Now the podcasting has a crisper content. That is what it is, and much better packaged. The best part in podcasting nowadays is another step, which is, video podcasting. So just like YouTube, you can do in podcasting also, you can do a visual podcasting of yourself also. So it is more connecting now, and it is more reachable. And I guess this is the future of audio industry. And I think everyone should be able to, to everyone should be able to, understand the importance of podcasting if they are in the audio industry. Uh, so I was thinking if anyone has any question, I can answer it over here. Is there anyone who would like to ask something? Any issue regarding podcasting? Anything that needs to be, precise? Any question related to podcasting? Because this is generic that I was talking about. Am I audible?
On behalf of our participants, I wanted to ask one question.
Yeah.
Can you please explain the relevance and the importance of voice modulation, pronunciation, diction, pitch, and so many other things? There are so many undefined elements in the podcasting. As a practitioner, you can better explain about the undefined. The way we are, uh, uh, producing our voice, the way we are, modulating our voice, the way we are changing.
Thing is, number one, the thing.
Yes, ma'am.
You when you are in audio industry, whether it's podcasting or radio or voiceover, whatever it may be, see, only your voice is heard, and because of that, because of your voice, you have to be very, very, perfect with your diction, the way you speak a word, and modulation, of course, because there is only your voice which is connecting. So your voice has to have a definite pitch and definite modulation also. You have to understand which words are more meaningful, and over there you have to put more stress, number one. And then you have to understand that every word has to be spoken correctly. I have heard many people who do not pronounce words rightly. I would always advise, please, today you have technology with you, and you can Google any word and its pronunciation and make your diction better. So before going into recording anything, even on a podcast or anywhere else, it is very, very imperative that your diction, your pronunciation is perfect. I've seen many people say is cool, but it's not is cool. Now, nobody tells these small things, it's cool. How would you know? You have to listen to the right pronunciation, and it is mandatory. It's like a cardinal sin if you're not pronouncing the words right. So first of all, because your words are the only things that are being communicated, you have to understand that your words are proper and your words are pronounced properly in a correct manner. And then obviously the stress, whichever word you want to highlight or you want, you convey it more effectively, you have to put the stress over there. And then coming to pitch, see, when generally we talk, we are in a very normal tone. But whenever we are in front of the mic, we always take our pitch a little bit higher. So that needs to be kept in mind. Not shouting, but yes, a little, a little higher than the routine stuff, basically. So I hope the question is answered. Anything else that somebody else would like to,
Ma'am, one more thing. How we can manage or how we can, convey the message of sadness, happiness, or any other state of mind during the, conversation with the audience through the radio or the podcast? Because normally we are trying to convey the message in a proper way, but sometimes is there any suitable kind of tool or the technique or the style you people are using for the purpose of communicating the emotions, feelings, sentiments, sadness, happiness through the voice? So is there any specific mechanism or the style?
Yeah, I'll tell you. There are three basic emotions. A, you are happy, right? B, you are normal, and C, you are sad. These three are basic emotions. So when you're happy, your pitch goes a little higher. But when you're sad, your voice drops down. मुझे ये कहना है, मैं आज बहुत दुखी हूँ. Your voice drops a little. Sadness अपने आप ही creep in होती है. Like when you come a little bit lower from your normal voice, it happens that you sound, and then you don't have to sound cheerful also. When you are sad. Go into that character. I always tell people, whatever you are saying, whichever character you are, you are telling, that become that character. Go into the spirit of that character. Then you will understand what and how to say that. But the thing is, if you are in a sad mood, your pitch will be a slightly, in a lower mode. But when you are excited, when you are happy, then your pitch is like, a little bit higher from your normal self. Hi, आज मैं बहुत खुश हूँ. I don't know how to express this. That is how you express your happiness. आज मैं बहुत दुखी हूँ. न जाने क्या हो गया है मेरी जिंदगी में. My pitch has gone down. So basically, it is your pitch, that tells that this is how you should communicate your two basic feelings: sadness, or like when you're happy. Apart from that, like normal voice may I'm interacting with you, this is okay. This is a normal pitch. That's it. So anything else you
Yes, yeah, I have some question. How do you go about every day there is a new story? So how do you generate your story idea?
See,
I want to add on to that. People don't get bored with you. That is the two thing. Every something new, and you've been listening more and more. I want to listen to some of the RJs. How do you manage it? Making that newness, uniqueness, whatever, I don't know what you call it. Yeah.
I don't know, but I always used to tell my students when I was running my academy, this was very basic question. I used to, put the first question in front of them. Why do you want to join radio, or you can say audio industry? So they used to say my voice is very good, or, I sound very good. I talk a lot. I said, no. Number one thing which is required for audio industry is to be creative. You should be creative with your ideas. Creativity is like a must. Agar creativity you don't have, then you please don't think about coming to radio. Because see, radio, unlike television or print, is not dependent on an outside source. Radio is like every time it is generating. So if you're buzzing with ideas, if you are creative enough to come up with things, if you're observant about people, if you're observant about situations, if you have views on everything, you will never lack the content to communicate with people. You will always come up with new things. So you have to be very conversant with what is happening around you, should be well read. You should be very observant also what is happening around you. And then you have to have your own views also. Newspapers never have their views. They only have edit page where they entertain the views wala thing. Television again is like, a general discussion platform is there when you can discuss your views. But in radio, you never tell the news. You discuss views. So that is why your creative mind comes in handy. You have to be creative with your ideas. If you're not creative with your ideas, you will never be able to generate new content. And we to have, in radio industry, they have producers for this. There are always producers like show producers, promo producers, ad producers. They are the ones who are coming up with ideas for the show, for the promo, for the ads. Every day it is like a challenge, meeting new thinking about new things every day. That's it.
So, ma'am, I have a question. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
So, Veera, ma'am, I have been listening you as a say fan when I was in Lucknow, and I can share that she was a wake-up alarm for Lucknow.
Yeah.
RJ Veera, it was excellent. And now, I think human being is very adaptive. We keep on, adapting new things from radio to podcasting. And even today, I go through your podcast, your travel podcast on Chitrakoot, Kedarnath. So what I want to ask, like when a normal person, maybe who has never thought to be a podcaster, but is a storyteller, उसको अच्छा लगता है कितनी बातें कहीं बोले. So what are like basic steps and moves, from A to Z, from thinking to becoming a podcaster? Like how will you explain this whole journey? like creating a podcast, then your podcast is ready. How will you make it reach out to people, target audience? Then how will you float it on social media? Then about revenue generation as well. So overall, if you can explain.
I have a very simple rule. I guess I'm talking to Shikha, right?
Now, yes, now.
Yeah. See, I have a very simple rule. Once Gulzar said that every age has a different creativity, every age has a different language. So I took that into account. And what I do is I try to keep up with the present generation every time. Like whenever I try to reach out to people who are, of this generation. And I learn fast. I try to learn fast. I try to learn the technical aspect. I learn what is happening these days. Like I was told podcasting is the thing. Now podcasting, where is podcasting happening? Now Spotify, Amazon Music is like the most happening of all. By the way, there are 45 podcast platforms, all across the world. And I'm so happy that my podcast is on all the platforms, which is like a very good thing for me. But you need to be, very, very alert what is happening around you, and you need to be quick enough to improvise. You need to grow. For that matter, I always admire Amitabh Bachchan ji. Maybe he's out of context, but you see the way he has evolved, the way he has changed with the time, the way he has changed his entire technique with the time. You have to go with the times. You have to flow with it. You have to understand and learn, everything which is happening in that particular phase. You just cannot be, in that nostalgic moment forever. Every moment passes. And if you have to be, if you want to reach out to people, you have to connect. And in order to connect, you have to keep on interacting with them. Be informative, be informed about what is happening around you, how it is happening, how to go about it. Learn from the kids. I always learn from them. So I guess this is what has helped me. And yes, I did face challenges because, when we are slightly older, it takes a little bit of time to understand things and to learn. But still, I think it is mandatory that you keep on evolving with time. You keep on reinventing yourself, as I call it. Reinvention is very necessary to stay in the mainstream.
I have one question from our participants. Dr. Kriti Singh is asking about many podcasts are emerging. How can one increase listenership in podcasting?
Okay. See, number one is deciding on the content. What is trending these days? What content is preferred these days? Number one, if you are, if you want to increase your podcast base, basically, then you have to cater to those people who are listening to, this kind of podcast. Like I've seen motivational, anything which is of self-help motivation is a welcome on podcasting platform. Uh, then the second thing is you have to personally push it in the beginning. It never happens magically overnight. You have to push it formally. So in the beginning, maybe it will take a year to keep on promoting it on your known platforms, maybe to your dear ones, maybe to your, people on your Facebook, Insta, LinkedIn, wherever social media you can promote it, and you have to promote it vigorously. Then you can hire people who are going to do it for you. That can also increase your podcaster base, or any base for that matter, social media base. There you have to put in money in that case. And but yes, in the beginning you do need patience, and you do need patience to persistently promote it. You cannot leave hope ki, no, nobody's listening to me, why should I do it? No, keep on doing it, because all viral things, they become viral suddenly. You never know what clicks with people. You have no idea what can click with people. So you have to keep on pushing in the beginning. And once you are heard, see, like I'm promoting it on a personal level, and then people are hearing. Now, when I think that my base is like a solid base, now I can go for marketing basically. And there are people who take, an amount and do it for you. So, and there's nothing wrong with it because it's like a professional thing. If you're good in marketing, you do it yourself. If you're not, then you have to hire somebody to do it. You will need a help over here.
Okay, one question which I have, ma'am. Do you see any difference in the content creation for the podcasting and radio? As there are many students who are interested being a radio jockey and they are interested in the radio industry. So do they find any difference in if they want to enter for as podcaster?
There is a lot of difference. There is a huge difference. And you know why is podcasting so popular? There is one single reason, that there is so much of freedom to express your thoughts. I mean, the topics are limitless, endless. You can pick any topic and talk about it. Whereas when we are in radio, there is a limitation. There is a show, there is a format, there is a target group whom we are reaching out. And somebody is over our head, you know, our boss is there who's telling us what to do, what not to do. But when you're podcasting on your own, you have the freedom to select your thoughts. You have the freedom to write it in your own way. And you have the freedom to express it in your own way. So it is such a liberating kind of experience, you know, recording your podcast. I personally feel so happy, you know, when I record my podcast, because I wrote the book In Search of a Perfect Kappa, and then I decided that why not bring it to people in audio format. So that is how my podcast started. So I retranslated it into, you know, restructured it into Hindi and then started. But I'm feeling so happy. See, I have the freedom over here of connecting with people with my thoughts, my things. So over here, sky is the limit. Podcasting is like, it's like a genie. You rub it and you can go anywhere with it. So it's like so good.
So, ma'am, just one question. Since we have youth associated with us at Amity University and we have academia people here, so
yeah,
like podcasting can be a career, like proper career. Still, students come up these questions, right?
Yeah.
That okay, developing your platform, making your audio file, following your passion is one thing. But what about real like career in this?
Money, career, yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, if I'm really honest, it does not pay in the beginning. It does not pay you in the beginning. Only when your podcasting has a fair base of, you know, followers, then these people approach you to be on board, basically. I would always suggest the young generation not to lose hope and to start podcasting. Because see, like suppose somebody is in the second year or third year of their course, of their, you know, this course, they can start podcasting. So by the time they are out of the college, by that time they will have followership. Then they will have the base, and wherever they will go, or they might be contacted with the podcasters only, the group of the podcasters, or they can go to any voiceover industry and promote themselves as podcasters, or even, you know, they can go to radio industry also, and they can, you know, show their the vastness of their work. That see, I've been here for past 2 years and I have been podcasting regularly. I have so many followers. But yes, podcasting in the beginning doesn't pay. It's just like YouTube. YouTube and podcasting are no different. YouTube pays a lot. And podcasting can also pay a lot. But you have to work in the beginning to build your base. It's just like building a house. You have to have a strong base, you know, to earn. So don't think that it'll start paying you off in the beginning. See what happens with influencers. They don't become influencers in the beginning. They keep on doing it, and then suddenly people start picking up, people start following them, people start liking them, their listeners, they know that their base starts increasing. The same is true for podcasting also. So I would always advise, if
you just mentioned about,
yeah,
sorry.
No, go ahead.
Ma'am, I was actually about to ask that you just mentioned YouTube, right? So number of time I see like podcast in audio format, but same thing coming up on YouTube and other, you know, platforms in video format, and they also say podcast, like or podcast is one term I heard. So exactly what is exactly podcast, and what is most trending? Like which hits, video format or audio format?
Video format. Video format anytime, let's. If you're visible, your face is with anything else.
So I think to begin with, video should be the preference.
Video should be the preference. But there are many times you don't feel like dressing up. You don't feel, because there has to be everything perfect then in the background, yourself and everything. I mean, the situation, there should be no hindrances. Audio, you can go in any way. It's just your voice. So obviously, video is more challenging. Video is more demanding. But yes, video anytime is more preferable than audio in any industry. But you know what? Like you said, on YouTube and on this channel, this is the time of cross promotion. Everybody is everywhere. Like, it's not that you are a YouTuber. If you are a YouTuber, you are also on Insta, you're also a podcaster, you're also on every other social platform. And you're cross promoting all your social platforms over here. Everywhere. If you're on YouTube, you will promote your podcast, you will promote your Insta handle, you will promote your Twitter handle. And if you're on Twitter, you will promote, it's like a cross promotion thing. It's everywhere kind of a thing. You cannot, just focus on one thing. Everywhere you have to be there. Be visible everywhere. That's the need of the hour. I guess all the... Hanji.
Ma'am, just tell me one thing, for the purpose of, broadcast and the podcast, is there any, formula, or is there any specific style or pattern which is, more popular in broadcast or more popular in podcast, or we should use the same style and pattern for the broadcast and the podcast both?
I think there is only one thing which is very, very important. That is choosing the content of your podcast or broadcast. Because you have to understand what is clicking with the people, masses. If you want yourself to be heard, if you want to increase your followership, you have to understand that content is the most important thing. What are you going to talk about? Are people interested in listening to that? You have to do a thesis kind of a thing. You have to understand the trending things. Like I have understood, my little daughter has told me, Mama, why you don't have so many views on Insta? Because you're not using trending songs. If you use trending songs, you will get more likes. I never knew this thing. She told me that. So I realized, okay, this is it. Now use trending songs, as an underlay. So you have to understand what is going on. For that, kids today are very smart. They find out everything very smartly. They have to focus on the content. What is trending? What people like to hear? That will get you audience.
Ma'am, practically, it's very easy to convey the message. It's very easy to form the content or the story or the present each and everything as per our choice, as per the situation for the audio form, because it's all about audio. But sometimes we are facing a lot of issues later with the video, because video, for the purpose of video, first of all we'll have to shoot, record, then only we can. But for the audio, it's very easy. So as per you, video, YouTube is giving too much amount, Facebook is also giving, Insta is also giving, but why people are not getting so much importance for the money on different podcast platform?
For the same reason, jo dikhta hai wo bikta hai. We say that जो दिखता है वो बिकता है, तो दिखना बहुत जरूरी है. दिखने पे ही focus है सारा. You have to be visible, na? So that is why it is given more importance. People always have that value, na? What is it? Who is saying it? Who is like the question mark, that is. So you cannot like take that away. It is there. Video will never be able to, audio will never be able to suppress video. Video will always rule.
And some people are saying that content is the king.
Content
Can we hit the market with the help of content on a podcast?
See, I personally like podcasts, because what I do is I plug in earphones, I listen to podcasts. I can do anything. I can do a number of things. I can take a walk, I can cook, I can read, whatever. But again, coming back to the trending thing. So people like to watch. So when it comes to watch, then watch. So video will definitely come up. No matter how good your content is. See, if you go to Insta Reels, if you go to YouTube Shorts, do you find very worthwhile content over there? You don't know. But we enjoy watching those things, even if it is for 10 seconds. There's one man who's falling down, getting up again, falling down, getting up again. There is no use, there is no sense in that, there's no content in that. But it's getting, millions of views. Just because watching it makes it so, it makes an impact watching it.
Ma'am, there is one question from our participant, Mr. Pankaj Dhiman. How do you see the contribution of government radio channels like All India Radio when it comes to content delivery in digital era? And are they turning to white elephants?
See, I began my career as in All India Radio only. When I was doing radio, I began it with All India Radio only. They taught me one very good thing. How to discipline yourself. That was one thing I learned from there. Now, what is discipline? Discipline of words. So people today also tell me that why are you, your words are very, you connect with people and your words are very, particular words. That is what All India Radio teaches, how to discipline your language. You just cannot say anything because when you're interacting with people, you have a responsibility. So that will never go away. That is one thing, it is very good. And everyone should learn it from there. But yes, the delivery is very sedate kind of, out of dated. I will not say out of dated, it is very sedate in a very, slow manner, in a very, it's very constrained basically. And today it's all about out of constraint. So there is a paradox. You cannot be, constrained so much. You have to be very perky. You have to connect with people. But I see young jocks in All India Radio now. When I hear them, they do try to, they do try to modulate with their voices. They do sound perky. Maybe not as private FMs, but under their, guide, Prasar Bharati guidance, they do try to experiment with their delivery, which is very endearing to see that they do try. I can never say it become. I have my own soft feelings for All India Radio because I began my career with All India Radio. So I cannot say that. It will always discipline me. It will always teach me the value of, certain things. How to be considerate to people, how to be really, understanding. That is what All India Radio teaches you. How to be sober.
Ma'am, as you said that because you have a background of course, All India Radio, so you know all the guidelines that how as podcaster or how as audio speaker you should use your language and choice of words. So for new podcasters who are directly entering into, let's say, the world of podcasting, do we have any guideline or any particular ethical aspect towards it?
No, there is no guideline, but there is personal guideline that you should always follow. Don't say anything which is hurting, which is not sounding good. Language is very, very rich, language is something which can touch people, which can irritate people, which can heal people. It's a wonderful medium. So you have to be very, very, particular with your language. And for that, the baseline is read a lot. If you will not read a lot, you will not have that word vocabulary to, speak. You will not have so many words. Nowadays, what kids do is they Google everything. But whatever you Google, you don't retain it over here. Retention comes from reading. You cannot stop reading. Reading makes you, richer with your language. And then you know that I do want to say this, but I have a better way of putting it. I can say it in a better way, which is not, which is not hurting anyone and which is conveying the meaning as well. You have to have command on your language, basically. And for that, you have to read.
Okay, we have another very interesting question in the chat box from Dr. Kriti Singh. With coming of AI generated voiceover, where do you see the future of human voiceover?
Uh, I'll tell you what. The other day I was making a video of the rain falling, right? And I sent it to my friends when I made that video, and I said, "See, I'm sending you the video. And you can see the rain, you can see the trees, swaying, you can see the black clouds, you can see the wet ground, but you cannot smell that sondhi wali smell, which will only come when you are on that spot. That I cannot give you. You understand? So that unique quality of each individual, that uniqueness with which we human beings are blessed, will not come from, the artificial voiceovers. They will do all the modulation. They can do anything. But that warmth वाला जो एक आता है ना, एक जो personal आपको God ने दिया हुआ है आपकी आवाज के साथ, वो कैसे हो जाएगा? That no machine can impersonate. That is your own special thing. When people tell me you have a very different voice, so what is that? That is something I've been gifted with. That artificial intelligence cannot take away from me. That warmth, that connect, वो जो emotion वाला है ना, that thing will never come. So rest assured. Audio and people in audio industry will always survive. It'll go on. I guess the time is over. Can I just say bye for now? And because I have a meeting lined up. There are people coming up.
Sure, ma'am. I hope our participants do not have any other question. So
we can connect some other time.
We will share the feedback, and in case if there will be any other query, we will definitely share with you.
Sure. So thank you so much for making a part of your this seminar, and I really enjoyed it very much. Most of my thoughts were also articulated because of you people. I just instantly thought about things.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I would like to take the pleasure of concluding this session officially. So you have very rightly said that how podcasting gives us freedom and how that freedom has to be utilized. And the young generation need to be, taught that how they can use their voice to empower the audience. Storytelling, responsibility as podcaster, and the importance of content in podcasting were some of the major topics which we had discussed in this session. Also, the finding language to connect with audience and about the career in podcasting for the young generation and our students. So with this, I would like to invite on behalf of organizing committee and Amity School of Communication, Amity University, I would like to invite Dr. Rakesh Prakash, Associate Professor, Amity School of Communication, for official vote of thanks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Neha ma'am. So the session was very informative, and ma'am has covered all the possible aspect of broadcasting, and what the basic difference between the podcasting and the broadcasting, and how we can use the voice modulation, how we can use the diction, how we can use the pitch, how we can use the pronunciation, and how we can use our state of mind during the podcasting or the broadcasting, and accordingly we can prepare the better kind of product, or better kind of output for our listener, for our viewers. So and one more point, one more question was really very interesting. As per the latest advisory of the government of India, now it's mandatory for all the manufacturers, I mean the mobile handset manufacturers, to provide the feature of FM radio in every handset, because now government of India, I mean the INB and the All India Radio, is shifting from national networks towards the FM network, and because of that, now government of India is trying to establish around more than 91 transmitters across the country, from Kanyakumari to Leh and Ladakh. So now government and the All India Radio is shifting from national network broadcast to the FM broadcast, And because of that, the NSD, the News Service Division of the All India Radio, is also sharing all the news content on the FM network. Earlier, they were broadcasting only 2 minutes bulletin on the FM Gold and the FM Rainbow, but now they are, broadcasting all the news bulletin and all the news content of News Service Division of All India Radio. That is called, the main bulletin as well as hourly bulletin. So all the bulletins are now, broadcasted by the All India Radio on the FM network as well as the national network. And now they are, they are on the way to shifting from the national to the FM network. So it was very, informative session. And thank you, everybody, for joining. And now over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir. We have one request from our participant, Ameya Balji. He wants to connect with our speaker for clearing some doubts regarding podcasting and voiceover. So we will definitely try to connect you with her through Shikha Shukla ma'am. And with this, I would like to officially wind up this day 4 of faculty development program. Dear participants, we will start our session on day 5th of faculty development program sharp at 10 a.m. tomorrow. And tomorrow we do have valedictory ceremony at 1:30 p.m. So thank you very much for your patience.
Neha, before we wind up, I would like to ask Ms. Shikha, got any guidelines for tomorrow's session to continue?
Sure, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. So today was basic understanding on podcast. I'm sure everybody was having, but somewhere we have some doubts. So I hope those questions were answered. And tomorrow we are going to conduct technical, a small 15-minute of technical session where which software to use. What about the dashboards of, best podcast, say podcasting platforms in India, how they are performing, what genres they are bringing forward, which are, most trending these days. So on these things, and then, yes, when we all are talking about podcasts, I want that let's create a podcast, even if it is of 2 minutes. Let's do all that exercise so that we understand what we have been listening. Let's cover that journey. So we have planned a very interesting and a journey which will end up with having a podcast of all the participants. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow's session. That was all. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We all are looking forward for tomorrow's session. Thank you.
Jolly ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there is one request. I know this reason is not valid, but tomorrow, as it's our last day of working, so I have a faculty meeting with my director at 10:30 to 11:30. So I'll join the session 11:30 onwards, if it's okay with you.
Yes, you miss Shika's session very much. She's going to hands-on training tomorrow. Yeah, and the valedictory session, we planned it as interactive with 2 resource persons. You will have a chance to discuss one on Professor Subhash Tulia, he is on so much on data journalism and alternate journalism, which we had been discussing. So he's practical plus, most of your present professor. Second person is also both academician and is a news industry person. So that as I also expect a good, we can all of you are resourceful. We'll also discuss how when you look at the curriculum, what would be the outcome or what some of your own views, experience and opinions can as the outcome of this FTP, which will also be pooled. So I look forward very much for tomorrow's session. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.